I took a class. It was really cool. It was a week-long class. Practically killed me by this guy named Tim Kennedy. And we learned how to fight, jujitsu, knife fight, hand-to-hand combat, shoot guns, all sorts of really cool stuff. And one exercise was really awesome. I had no idea what I was doing. It was basically like if you were being followed, how to be a little bit hardened. And so you make it difficult for them. So you're always like, maybe looking into mirrors or just getting in positions where you're not going to be trapped in something. And because you never want to be aggressive, because if you're too aggressive, they'll kill you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hands-On Logos podcast. This is where we discuss current events, personal growth, and any other random topic that crosses our minds. Our goal is to have a meaningful discussion that help us to see the topics we discuss more clearly. Our hope is we can help you expand your self-awareness, develop your critical thinking, and learn to be less reactive to the world around you. And most importantly, remember, be curious. If you like what you hear, like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any feedback, please leave a comment. We want to hear what you think. We appreciate you. Guess what? Guess what episode this is, Chris?
2491.
Not quite yet. I don't know if we'll make it to that or not, but that's a good goal to hit. We're at episode number 20, Chris. This is episode number 20.
We've been doing this for that long.
That long, yes.
Well,
that's pretty awesome.
We didn't have a plan to get off our butts and do something, and I guess we are kind of doing something.
We are kind of doing something. So this is kind of what I thought. Since this is episode number 20, we might start kind of cleaning our act up just a little bit. I mean, not very much, but let's just start maybe trying to be a little bit more professional. I mean, I know that's quite an ask, but let's start moving in that direction.
A little more. Okay, all right. What does that mean?
Not saying and things like that.
Oh, you mean you get better at speaking and reasoning and explaining and those types of things.
And less, probably more of that and less babbling. At least start moving towards that direction.
Well, it was interesting. I was at a med tech, not a event yesterday here in Irvine, and they had the CEOs of the company get up and speak, and they were like small companies, and all I could do was watch and watch their speech and critique them in my mind. And I actually went up to them afterwards and said, "Can I give you a piece of unsolicited advice on speaking?" And I did. Yeah. One guy had his hand in his pocket, and then at one point he took his hand out of his pocket and he was gesturing, and that made all the difference. He looked like a young guy, who didn't know what he was talking about with his pocket and hand in his pocket. But as soon as he pulled it out and started gesturing in kind of that power zone, it made a huge difference in the way he came across.
Yeah. I know we did Toastmasters today. I gave a speech, and he critiqued me. And there's a couple things that he critiqued me on, which I thought was pretty interesting. One is like my eyes. You wanted me to open my eyes more? I just got squinty eyes, man.
I know. That's why I said it's going to sound mean when I say this. I said it's going to say mean when I say this because, I don't know. Like right now, at this exact moment, you're kind of squinty. Now when you open them, I can see them a lot more.
I know, it takes a lot of mental effort.
You're a lot closer here as well, so I see more of your eyes than I did earlier, because earlier you were further back.
Yeah.
No, it's one of those things. Also, like I know your skin pallor and all that. I was like, I don't know how to change that up, right? Like my problem is my background and my skin, and often the colors I wear are all versions of beige. So.
Yeah, well, let's hang on just a second. I wonder if I can do something. Exposure image. I could make myself a touch warmer. I don't know. Does that look a little better?
No, just before you hit it looked better, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I don't really worry too much about that. Oh, I can make myself a little more saturated, maybe. Maybe a little more vibrance. Okay, that's as good as you get today, Chris.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I was nitpicking.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, I told you to, nitpick actually.
And I wanted everyone
Good.
else to feel comfortable nitpicking you as well, because the whole idea that you're last week when you took apart Dan's background with that plug down there, I just kept seeing the plug today because you mentioned it last week. In his background, he has that plug.
I've been fortunate to get just some amazing photographers train me. And as soon as you start seeing something, you can't unsee it anymore.
Yeah, well, that's true of all the ums and the ahs that we talk about, right? As soon as
Yeah,
you notice the first one, you notice all of them.
yeah, yeah. Which is kind of interesting because you basically move from a state of unawareness to awareness. So I'm going to tell a story since whatever, it's story time. Story time by
Alrighty.
Scott. So I took a class. It was really cool. It was a week-long class. Practically killed me by this guy named Tim Kennedy. And we learned how to fight, jujitsu, knife fight, hand-to-hand combat, shoot guns, all sorts of really cool stuff. And one exercise was really awesome. I had no idea what I was doing. It was basically like if you were being followed, how to be a little bit hardened. And
Mhm.
so you make it difficult for them. So you're always like, maybe looking into mirrors or just getting in positions where you're not going to be trapped in something. And because you never want to be aggressive, because if you're too aggressive, they'll kill you. And I thought this was a game. Then I started thinking, man, these guys are going into what's called I can't remember what it's called. Not permissible, but like hostile environments, basically. And you had to constantly be on alert. And I got caught every single time. I mean, I just sucked beyond belief. And I was talking to him after the exercise, which was like a 3 or 4 hour exercise. And I was telling him how much I suck. And he goes, "This is amazing." He was so excited. I'm like, "What are you so excited about?" He's like, "No, no. You know what just happened, man? You know what just happened? You went from being unaware of how incompetent you are to now being aware of how incompetent you are. And
Mhm.
that is a huge breakthrough because now you can start working on it. And that just was really exciting for him. So I guess, when it comes back to Toastmasters, when you start to be aware of something, you might feel like you suck even more than you did before, but it's a good place that you're in because now you can start to get better.
Well, I would tie it with you acknowledge that you see this gap, right? You didn't know there was a gap there before,
Completely
and now you
unaware,
acknowledge.
right?
But I
Yeah.
mean, it's like what is it? The first step of the 12-step program for Alcoholics Anonymous is to acknowledge that you have a problem.
Yeah.
I keep going on about people who never assess risk and they take risks. Like
Yeah.
someone who looks at a risk and understands it and still takes the risk is different than someone who doesn't even think there's a risk and goes and does it. Right? There's
Oh
a
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
and so to me, it's about that awareness. It's about the acceptance and awareness of
Yeah.
the situation.
Yeah. Because now you can start to, if you can accurately estimate how much risk there actually is, you can actually start doing things to mitigate the risk or yeah, mitigate the risk basically. I mean, I was thinking in terms of insurance is to defer the risk, give the risk to somebody else. But it like if there's a bunch of snakes running through your yard, I mean, you should probably not. Well, yeah, you could transfer the risk, right? Maybe you don't mow your own lawn. You hire somebody to mow your lawn for you, right? Let them deal with the risk.
Hire the kid down the street. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah. So anyways, so there's only one thing I wanted to talk about today. We have to talk about because I know you have a bunch of stuff you want to talk about.
Yeah.
I was just doing a little workout, and we have to talk about it now. I just want to tell you what it is. So I've been a really young kid, and he was going to school. He's very disillusioned with school because he's doing online stuff. And this is the thing I was disillusioned when I went to school with is I didn't really feel like my teachers really knew anything. Because basically they were just one chapter ahead of me, and they would just read you the book, right? And just like, come on, man, I can read a book. And he was going through the same, frustration. And so I told him we were doing a podcast today. And I told him we would work on a list. Like if we were both, he's 20 years old. Like if we were 20 years old and didn't know a whole lot, like what are the top 5 or 10 skills we'd want to learn? And so I'd like to kind of work through that today a little bit for him. I told him I'd bring him a list next time I saw him.
Okay.
So with that, let's just fit that in sometime in the next couple hours and
So you want a list of skills that I wish I had developed when I was in my 20s?
I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's more for him, but yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, I get that, but in my mind, it's in hindsight, it's the things I wish I that I think I would have needed, right, when I was in my 20s,
Yeah.
and providing it to him is what you're saying.
And I'm
Yeah.
going to start it out. We'll work on it later, but I'm going to start out with one is like AI, right? I mean, AI is just it's like you're at a serious disadvantage if you don't know how to use AI.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what I'm saying is at least you know how to like log into Chat GPT and do some basic prompting
A
and
lot of
just get
people
it.
can do that. I mean, I think what you really mean is they need to learn how to build a relationship with AI. It's different than it's the ability to so everyone thinks, oh, I'll make a prompt and the prompt will do everything. It's like the prompt does what it does within its constraints. You've got to then do a second prompt and a third prompt and a 50th prompt and a 60th prompt to get what the actual result you want.
Yeah.
And it's almost
Yeah.
like it's very much like hiring a new hire who knows nothing, and they iterate bit by bit. You have to give them that next piece of
Yeah.
information, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the key. I also think that opens up a lot of the jobs that will probably remain for at least in the short term for people, right? The ability to train an AI to do things that AI can't do. And the
Yeah.
reason AI can't do it is because the AI doesn't understand the world. It understands the internet. It understands what humans have created, but being able to look up what gravity is and define gravity because it's in a dictionary or on Wikipedia is different than understanding intrinsically that things fall and break.
Well, maybe what the skill is then, maybe AI is really not the right skill. Maybe the skill is how to look at a problem, break it down into its chunks, and then articulately explain, like define the problem very carefully and be able to express it in a way that people can understand, including AI. Maybe that's the actual
Well,
skill.
that skill's independent of AI, right? That's
Yes,
just a
correct.
skill.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's a problem solving skill that's really about defining the problem. It's about it's about going to the why of an issue and being able
Yeah.
to understand the pieces that make it up. So there's
Yeah.
a level of analysis that goes into that. There's level of awareness and a level of analysis, a level of knowledge that's usually fact based or skill based. All that mixes together for you to be able to coherently come up with an idea in your head that you then articulate as a way to potentially solve a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. In a way that people go, oh, yeah, okay, I know what to do now. I know how to solve that problem.
And once you get, even if you don't have enough information in your head to solve that problem, if you've got enough to aim in a certain direction, then you can use the AI to help augment that, right? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
this, and this, but I know this thing over here, and it's related to this. So I'm going to assume that I can talk to AI and kind of build that knowledge base up.
And maybe that's the real skill, just being able to clearly articulate what you want in a way that other people can explain.
Yeah.
So the Bible, there's a verse in the Bible that says, ask and you'll receive. And
Hmm.
that's super common because if you have a problem and if you can ask it in a way that other people can understand, they're like, oh, I know a guy, or I know how to do that, or I don't know how to help you. But it's when you start asking stuff clearly, all of a sudden the universe responds to you in a really interesting way.
I think you respond to yourself too. When you ask yourself the questions clearly, you're able to come up with a lot of the answers yourself without as well.
Yes, yes, like exactly, like with great precision. What do I want, and exactly what is the problem, and
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 that
and what's the next step to move towards that solution?
I mentioned to you that I had an argument, a conversation with ChatGPT this week,
Yeah, I did too. Just the other day, it was crazy actually.
and I
Just
sat down
lying all
and
the
I
time.
had to keep defining further, and my prompts got longer and longer to be able to explain what I wanted without ChatGPT giving me stuff that was, I'll say, for the masses, right?
Yeah,
It's like, here's the generic, third grade, fifth grade, high school level explanation. And I'm like, no, 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 I don't want that. I need this.
yeah,
Um, Mine was prompted by, I was in the car and the news had mentioned that a second person had died from measles, I think in Texas or wherever that measles
Yeah, I'm
outbreak.
touching yeah.
And I thought to myself, okay, I wonder how many people have died from the measles vaccine, right? Because a lot of these people who are
100%.
getting measles they're part of a cohort that is not getting the vaccine, and then the
Yeah.
kids get the measles and they die. And they say like 1 in 1,000 people or something like that who get measles die, or I think that was the number, right? So I said, okay, I wonder how many people who've gotten the vaccine have died. So I asked ChatGPT, how many people have gotten the MMR, which is, I don't know if there's other viruses, but have vaccines before that, but that's the one I know, right? The mumps, rubella, mumps, MMR, whatever that is. Anyway, and it said none, and I said, really? You've given millions of doses of this out, and none have died? So I said, how many people have gotten really sick? And it said, oh, probably there's probably hundreds. I said, you don't have a real number for me to go off of?
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah, where do these numbers come from? And it started telling me the sources of the numbers and the like. I said, okay, then tell me the people who criticize, whether they have any facts behind it or not, what do they say the number is? And
Yeah.
it wouldn't tell me those numbers either. So then I said, all right, give me the list of all of the vaccines that children normally get up to the age of 18. Give me an estimate of how many doses have been given out and how many deaths there are, and kind of an estimate of how many people have gotten sick from it. And then an estimate of how many people we think would have died if we didn't have it, right? Just because, these are all, calculated numbers, so we don't know how accurate they really are, right? There's a lot of fudge factor in it. But it produced stuff, and every time it would produce it in what I would call the politically correct way. It would not
Yeah,
tell me
right.
stuff that it thought it would that I could misuse or find offensive. And I'm like, you
Yeah.
don't get it. I want that information because I said, I believe that vaccines, scientifically, vaccines work and they are a good thing. And Pasteur and smallpox and cowpox and all that stuff, he created, he founded that science in my mind, and there is scientific evidence behind that working. The question I have is, when it comes to what we actually produce and give to people, is there some disconnect between the science and the product?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask that. So I said, I don't need you to convince me that vaccines work. What I need you to do is give me numbers so I can see how well they work, and if there is a problem, where in the system the problem is. Is the problem because we introduced profit
Right.
insurance? The pharmaceutical companies are now making efficiencies at the cost of people, or at the cost of people's health. And then so I went through all this, and I started going through, okay, what are the normal vaccines? And basically, no vaccines have ever caused any deaths, is what they're saying. Right? And I'm like, okay. COVID was the one where they kind of said there might be some things in there. But then the one thing, I had a conversation with a guy last week who said that the COVID vaccines aren't real vaccines. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, they don't fit the definition. And I said, really? And so as I was having this conversation with ChatGPT, I thought, I wonder what the definition of a vaccine is.
Yeah,
And he
right,
gave me
right,
the
right.
definition. And I said, what was the definition of a vaccine before COVID? And it said in 2016, this was the definition. Today,
Right.
and it's changed.
Yeah.
Right? Before, the idea was a vaccine was derived usually from the actual disease itself. And
Yeah.
then you gave it to someone in a weakened state or in some kind of a specialized state where the body would know how to fight that particular one.
Right, right,
Whereas
right.
with the mRNA, you're not using the actual disease, so you're conditioning the body to be able to better fight. So I said maybe the proper term isn't to call it a vaccine, but immune support or an immune augmenter or something like that, because it's not the same thing. But what they did was they changed the definition of the word vaccine to include the mRNA technology, and that just feeds conspiracy theories. All this
Yeah.
stuff just feeds conspiracy theories left and right. And I'm like, how can I trust stuff when I can't even get real information? Or not even real
Well,
information, honest information, let's say. It doesn't have to be real, it has to be honest. It can be
well, and
wrong,
this
but
is
honest. So,
yeah, and this is something I think everybody needs, and we need to get better at doing this. Is we need to ask the question, like, when you say vaccine, what does that mean? Like, we need to be very careful that we understand that before. I think even before we start to argue, we got to make sure that we understand the parameters, right?
so this is one of those things that pissed me off. One of the football quarterbacks was resisting getting the vaccine back during the pandemic,
Yeah.
and he said, "I've been inoculated." They asked him, "Did you get the vaccine?" He goes, "I've been inoculated." He
Okay.
didn't
Yeah.
say, yes, I got the vaccine. And as soon as he said that word, I'm like, he didn't get it. That's it.
Yeah.
I
Right.
know. You don't play word chess that way unless you're trying to avoid something,
Mm-hmm.
right? If someone asks you a question that's a yes or no question, you don't use a different word unless you're not answering the question.
Yeah. 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 And this happens. So I gave a speech today about John 3:16 and going back to the original Greek and interpreting it, and man, it's just fraught with errors. But boy, oh boy, you have to very carefully design. You have to very carefully design your questions, and it is so easy because there's another word that's very similar to the one of the words that has a very different meaning, and so it's so important to be so precise when you're defining these things.
Wow. So you're talking about the commonly accepted English version of the Bible is wrong?
Boy, oh boy, I don't want to use the word wrong.
Okay.
Right. At first, until I started to dig deeper, I'm like, yes, it's wrong, right? Because I tend to go to black and white thinking. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's right or it's wrong, one of the two. And so, what I'm talking about, using the word so, is it says, for God so loved the world. And so, invariably, today, if you ask what that means, it's like, oh, that means how much? It's quantity.
So
And if you go
much.
back and read the original Greek, it's not referring to quantity. It's a better translation. I don't use the proper, I use a better translation would be this is how God loved the world. And, but here's the fascinating thing. So this is more of a linguistics problem, our challenge, Chris, is that so this is the King James version, which was translated several hundred years ago, and it's some people's favorite version, right? Because it's very
Mm-hmm.
poetic and it's smooth and it's a beautiful translation. But so that word so used to mean this is how things got done. But as language changed, we've sort of redefined the term so meaning quantity in this case. And so these little tiny differences can really create discrepancies in what people think about things. That's why I think as a general you got to be very careful and very precise and to define the language before you start.
So you're saying the word
So,
so
so
that you're saying the word so in old English when it was translated meant something different, or you're actually going back to the original word actually meant something potentially something
no,
else.
not the original word. So, yeah, so tended to think, and I wish I had a better. This is not clear in my head. This is just what somebody told me. I can't even give an example. So I really don't want to go down this road because I'm totally babbling. We made a promise to ourselves that we do less babbling and more professional stuff. But I'll try to research that and get a little more clarity on it. But yes, the core problem is what does the word so mean? Like remember Bill Clinton when he was busted for his Monica Lewinsky thing?
What is
He
to
said,
me?
yeah,
Was
it
it
depends on what it means, right?
it?
Oh
That's
yeah.
right. What it means.
Yeah, there you go. That's an
Sure.
attorney for you. They love to play games with words.
Well, as we know, even though we use the same words the same way, doesn't mean they actually mean the same thing in our heads.
Yes. Yep.
And that's
Yep.
that's actually that was a different thing I worked on this week, and I don't know why, but I was something got me thinking about people misinterpreting what other people say, and so
Yes.
I thought about the term Black Lives Matter,
Yes.
and then the response that a lot of people said was All Lives Matter,
Yes.
and
Right.
how each of those terms triggered people. Both of those
Yes.
terms trigger, and I thought to myself, why are these terms triggering you, right? And so
Yeah.
I did a thought exercise. I went into my journal, and I started thinking, okay, I'm going to defend both of these and say they're both right,
Yeah. Right.
right? So I started with the Black Lives Matter and say, okay, let me pull out my notes here real quick because I want to try to articulate the ideas that go behind some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I started with a whole explanation about how when I first heard the term Black Lives Matter, it rubbed me the wrong way. It gave me a negative viewpoint. And regardless of historically whatever happened to the organization and the like, and there's been a lot of criticism, I thought, why did that make me feel that way? And I realized because it felt like it was being too exclusive, right? it felt like it was only saying, I only care about Black lives. And that means, well, what about everyone else? What about the other people of color that have suffered, or even just not even white people who've suffered injustices? Why is it that way? And I started going through this, and I said, well, what are the beliefs or premises that kind of have to go in for you to think that this is the right thing to say?
Right, right.
And I realized, I think you need to think that the American systems, legal, law enforcement, educational, banking, whatever, have inherent bias that
Right.
manifests as racist outcomes for some people. In this case, especially Black people, right? That's one of the assumptions that has to go into your head, one of the beliefs. And as a result, you got minorities, especially Black people, are treated unequally in society and get unequal results,
Right.
right? So, and at that time, we also had all the big main cases of innocent, unarmed Black people getting killed.
Right.
And some of them because they weren't innocent, but they were unarmed, right? So you had a lot of that going on. So that got a lot of attention. Those things combined gave the impression that Black people were suffering heavily from this. So
Yeah.
if you are someone who says, I need to alleviate that problem,
Yes.
my concern isn't everyone else who's suffering this problem, but that problem. So you
Yeah.
create your own movement and you call it Black Lives Matter.
Right. That
And
seems reasonable.
from your viewpoint, it seems perfectly reasonable. I'm focused on this one little thing. It's not that I don't care about you, but I care about this thing right now, and this is what I'm addressing,
Right.
right? And then I think with all of the things that were happening with the pandemic and the George Floyd and all that stuff, the Black Lives Matter movement got a lot of attention and then started running up against mainstream viewpoints.
Yeah.
And so now the person who says all lives matter, when they hear someone say Black Lives Matter, it seems like you're discounting everybody else. You're just as racist as everyone else because you're only concentrating on Black people. You're saying only they are the ones that deserve a movement. And I think that's what's going through the head of someone who hears Black Lives Matter, who gets upset,
Well,
right?
I'm going to tell you what I think in that particular case. I'm just imagining this. So in their head, like a Black person would be thinking,
Now,
what you're
black person
saying,
or someone who's for the Black Lives Matter movement, right?
um, mm, I don't know. I don't know how, I don't know. I didn't think of that case. But let's just say right now for somebody for the Black Lives Matter case,
Mm-hmm.
I think in their head, the first thing that would pop in is they're not against white people, but I think there's a power difference. It's like Black people have been mistreated way more than white people. And so you're trying to, I think in their mind, they're saying what you're trying to do is you're trying to eliminate that difference. You're trying to minimize the power difference. And we're not going to let you get away saying that because
Okay,
that's
so
what you really mean.
I think there are people who think that.
Yeah.
The idea here, though, is I'm trying to steelman a case for why this is a valid point to have. In my mind, you are now bringing in beliefs of inequality that you need to somehow justify an opposite reaction to. So, in essence, you're saying, yes, I am being a little racist. I am being a little exclusionary because I need to right the balance. And I'm not even making that argument. I'm not even going there. I think that is a different thing. What I'm saying is, if I just say my cause is to fight the injustice for one particular subgroup of Americans, then Black Lives Matter is not offensive. It's just a term saying this is important. It's when it's seen in a context beyond that. When you see other people say no, all lives matter because we care about everyone. We care about Hispanics and Asians and all of
Yeah.
these groups that also has suffer some of the racism as well. And so I think I'm trying to steelman the argument here, right? I think as soon as you get into now it's okay to treat people differently, it's okay to be a little bit exclusionary, then we get into I think a different area of conversation. And I think that's the next layer of people thinking about this. But I'm just trying to steelman the argument because I think on the other side, the person who says no, all lives matter, they're hearing the word Black Lives Matter and they go no. Their underlying core is like all lives
Yeah. Right.
matter equally, and therefore for you to pick one out is an improper and exclusionary, right?
Right.
And in essence, it's like, well, yes, because you're looking at the big picture and they're looking at a very specific picture. You're not seeing the same problem,
Yeah.
right? And therefore, you've got a definitional problem difference there, and then you've got a world in which the Black Lives Matter movement is hitting up against all this pop culture stuff that's happening, and now we've got a reactionary aspect of it as well. So then you start bringing in, I think what you're saying is, oh, it's about power. Right? That's where the defund the police idea came out of, which to me is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I
Yeah.
understand police are powerful. And I understand that societies in general put too much responsibility on the police because they're not psychiatrists. They're not people designed to
Yeah.
handle a lot of this stuff. We probably do need to have other departments with the skill set and the ability to do this that go hand
Yeah.
in hand with the police. I don't think I think we expect we expect our police to handle way too many situations
Yeah.
in a
Right.
complex world that exists today. But
Yeah.
the answer, and then of course everything's black and white. Defund the police was black and white. It was take all the money away. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell are you talking about? You want to shunt a little bit of the money over to psychiatric care or something like? I get it, but
Yeah.
take all the money away? Come on, that's dumb.
Well, and I don't even know if they actually meant that or not. I mean, that was
I
probably
think they
more of
did.
an emotional reason. I
It was
have no
it was
idea.
an emotional marketing thing to get attention in my mind.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah.
The problem was a lot of the people reset it, and they didn't think about it. They just followed whatever was said. And then you
Yeah.
had like, was it Portland that had their whole city blocks that were just out of control?
Yeah.
Right? They
I
had
know.
no police presence at all in some areas.
Yeah. Yeah. They in essence, to try to fix this one injustice or this one problem, they created a much bigger problem.
Well, it's the burn it all down idea.
Yeah. Right.
You know, it's like it's unequal, and I don't like it, so let's burn it all down instead of
Yeah.
and cause all the pain and suffering that required. But then we'll all be equally in pain and suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
And that happens. That when you're in that mode, I don't think you're thinking clearly. You're because you feel so wronged. There's so much pain going on. You're like, okay, if I'm in this pain, everybody's going to be. That's like the expression, if mama's not happy, nobody's happy. Sort of
I mean, the
thing.
whole thing is
And this is just
maybe,
this is just basic human nature, Chris. This is doesn't have anything to do with skin color. This is just how our brains work.
yeah. This is the thing. So this is why I feel getting control over your emotions in your brain is the ultimate show of humanity, because it means that you're no longer an animal. You are the full expression of what a human is.
Yeah.
So if you make decisions off of emotion, you're much closer to an animal than to what a human being can be.
Yeah, and possibly we're different. I mean, I think God made us in different ways. Yeah, because we're not because I think in the most cases, animals are totally driven by instinct and emotion. I don't know how much they actually think. I'm not sure. Because sometimes I look at my cat and I wonder, like, why did you do that? It's like, why did you decide, cat, to like get up off this chair and move to that chair? It's like,
No, cats are thinking. You've seen them do some pretty horrible things, like when they push the cup off the table to break it, and then they watch the owner to see what's going, the reaction. They're
Yeah, no, they're doing
thinking.
it just for fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I mean, animals do think. Crows are very smart. I mean, even bees can teach each other how to do things. I don't know if
yeah,
you've seen these experiments where they teach one bee how to, like, I forget, get some food, and that bee can teach other bees.
yeah, yeah,
That's, I mean, to me, it's amazing that that nature is that way. But what I'm getting at is, I think, God, evolution, nature, whatever, gave us a brain, and that is the ultimate. Right now, it is the ultimate in, I don't know. It's not spirituality. I don't know. I guess it's the mental realm, but to me, that is the ultimate um, expression of what man can do, is in our ability to use our brain, and
yeah.
so that means take the emotion out,
Now, when
take
you say man, I assume you're
human,
human. Yeah, exactly.
human,
The Greek word for that is anthropos. I just learned it the other day. Actually, it basically means human
anthropos,
being.
yes, anthropology.
Yes. So, yeah, that's so interesting. But you're right, Chris. I think because emotion, if you're led solely by emotion, you can get bad outcomes. And I'm not saying suppress all emotions because I think it's important to blend those, but just make sure that you're thinking clearly through things.
We are getting bad outcomes, right? I mean, if we look at people who don't exercise, because like me, because I don't like the pain associated with exercise and movement, That's a
Yeah.
bad thing because then my body actually breaks down faster. Right? It's
Yeah.
it's it's a use it or lose it scenario, and if it's uncomfortable to use it and you let your feeling get in the way of that, then you're actually hurting yourself. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
No,
when you're
no.
a parent.
Yeah.
When you're a parent, you're telling your kid to do something, and they break down and cry, and you don't want to comfort them, but you got to let them cry.
Yeah. 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 I can't remember who it was, said it. I think, I don't know if it was Yoda or, somebody with Anakin Skywalker, that he was talking about. What was he talking about? He was talking about the fact that how it's fine to think about future and past, but never at the expense of the present. And so I think I'm arguing against myself, because I think if you don't exercise, you're saying, I don't want the pain. I'd rather I'm willing to push the pain off till tomorrow so I don't have to take care of the pain today. Right. I think it's a perspective. It's like, are you taking care of yourself
Well,
right now, or is it future self you're talking about?
I think you're giving way too much credit to that thought because I think it's like I just don't want to suffer today. It has nothing to do with tomorrow. Tomorrow's not even in the equation.
So then maybe you are operating in the present moment.
How
Maybe,
how does a smoker not stop smoking? We know it's bad for their health, and
well,
yet they continue to smoke.
typically the pain builds up enough where it's like, okay, I'm gonna stop.
Yes, but when you smoke your first cigarette, you know you shouldn't. When you're smoking your 10th cigarette, you know that is bad for you. You build a habit of doing it, and you know that in the future it's going to cause problems. You know that but that's not the same
Do
as
you really?
incorporating
Is
that.
that what they're really thinking? Are you really
So
making a conscious
no,
decision?
it's like I won't get into a car accident. I won't. This won't happen to me. It happens to
Yeah,
people, but
right.
not me. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's part of it. But the point being, someone who's logical about it knows that they have whatever chance of this happening to them, which means it's an increased chance, and therefore they're able to make a decision based upon the risk factor.
yeah, right,
Right.
right,
I think the
right.
problem is we let the emotion of the present impact our decision in the future because we ignore the risk factor.
Yeah, I think maybe what we are, Chris, maybe we give ourselves too much credit. I think we have the potential to be greatness. There's greatness inside of us, but I think a lot of it, we're just drug addicts. We just want the buzz. We just want that feeling right now. Because I eat that
Yeah.
donut, I smoke the joint, I smoke the cigarette, I do whatever you're gonna do,
What
right?
was
I
it happening
mean,
the other day? I ate lunch at like 2 or 3 o'clock, and it was
yeah,
very protein heavy, and I was like, at 6, 7 o'clock, I wasn't hungry,
yeah.
and yet my mind is still going through all the things I should be eating. Oh, I can go eat this, or I could be eating, right? And I'm like, why? What's going on here? And there was no reason, but I was conditioned to think that way. So we've
Yeah.
got our conditioning. I'm not, you avoid the hard thing, the exercise or whatever, and you keep talking about Goggins' idea of going after, David Goggins going after the hard stuff and challenging himself. It's like
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
almost addicted to the pain. It sounds like he's addicted to doing the hard
Probably
thing,
so. Yeah, yeah,
and maybe that's really what it needs to. We need to value the hard thing for what it is,
yeah, yeah.
right? I
Because
don't think we do
it
that
truly
anymore.
makes you better, right? Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean,
I told you the story about watching parents in Germany letting their kids play. They go off and they run and they do things where they could fall down and get hurt. And like, oh, you watch the Americans and they don't let their kids do that anymore.
yeah, it's just, yeah, yeah, it's just, man, there's, you've got to logically think through this stuff. How much balance do you want? How much risk? So I'm going to go back to this Tim Kennedy guy. So interesting. During this class, he had a young son. I don't know, I'm just going to say 5 years old, 6 years old, or something like that. And, kids like to run around. He was like, running up a hill, and he got in trouble. He didn't know how to get down. And it was so interesting. Any other parent, and my immediate thought is, oh, I got to go up there and get him and bring him down, right? Tim didn't do that. He didn't do that. He said, like, he literally walked him through a mental process of how to deal with this. Like, so he told him, okay, I want you to stop. I want you to take 3 deep breaths. It's like, you're safe right now. Get your balance. Think through things. He goes, now what I want you to do is I want you to chart a course down. It was only like 30 feet. It wasn't a big thing. And I want you to think in terms of what's my optimal path. He was literally like laying out this set of instructions for him, walking him through step by step in order to get down this, little hill. And I'm like, what an interesting way to deal with stuff. I mean, most parents would just go up there and save his kid, right? They wouldn't even think about it. But he was thinking, I've got to teach this kid how to handle hard things on his own because I'm not always going to be here, right, to protect him. Like, what a crazy thing. What a difference in, can you imagine 10 years of that? What a difference in self confidence that kid would have? How much more robust he's going to be, how much mentally stronger he's going to be.
Hmm.
That's crazy, you know?
If he survives.
If he survives.
At the end of the day, I'm assuming also going on through the parent's mind is what is the real risk?
Oh, he's definitely
Like,
thinking, what is
like
the
if
real
he
risk?
falls, the kid breaks his arm. Okay, that's bad, but it's not life threatening,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
And maybe that's the other thing is you need to have enough knowledge to be able to assess the situation,
To accurately
right?
assess the
So a parent who
situation.
doesn't know might think, "Oh my God, my kid's gonna die," and they go and so they can't take that
Yeah,
approach, right?
yeah.
So there's a big difference here. My my wife and daughter have interesting viewpoints about getting sick. So at a play this week that my daughter was doing, someone on one of the cast threw up in the backstage, and so then the idea that it could be norovirus came up, and of course if you're anywhere near the vomit that comes out, you can get easily sick from
Yeah.
norovirus. So my wife made one comment, and then my daughter's freaking out that she's going to get norovirus. So I'm like, no, just go wash your hands, you're fine. It's like when food falls on the floor, it gets dirty and you don't eat it,
Yeah.
right? But could you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it going to kill you? No.
Probably
You
not.
know,
Yeah.
I mean, at a time when we didn't have the clean houses we have today, maybe 100 some odd years ago, maybe I don't know, but
Yeah.
when it comes down to it, we don't have chickens running around in the house leaving crap around. We don't have mice running in our house usually, if you can, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we don't have the same levels of risk that could happen. Yes, those are things that could happen, but likely to are two different
Highly
things.
unlikely. Right. And it's interesting because in fact, if you don't expose your kids, if you just keep them wrapped up in a plastic bubble, they actually get weaker and weaker and weaker, as opposed to the whole idea is you want to expose them in a very controlled way to just a little bit of pressure and let them deal with that, then a little more, then pull them back and a little more. Just like we do everything, just like weight training. It's like you want to, make it hurt a little bit, make it burn a little bit, and then take a rest and let your body recover and heal. You get
One of the
stronger.
most interesting things you will see if you go to Japan, you will see 5-year-old kids going to school by themselves. No one walking with them.
Interesting. Yeah.
They get to the street light that they have to cross the street.
Yeah.
And in the old days, I don't know if they have this anymore. They had flags, and they would grab a flag, they'd hold it up, and they'd walk across the
Oh,
street.
there you go.
Right, and they
Right.
hold
Right.
it up so people could see them, and of course they understood the crosswalk, and it made the beeping noises or whatever, so they understood
Yeah.
that. Um, Also, the uniform of like a little kid was like short pants and a not a t-shirt, but like a short sleeve shirt. Even when it's really bad weather, and the idea was like, oh my God, they must be freezing. He goes, yeah, but they'll get all their sicknesses out early,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
right?
Right. Exactly.
It's just a viewpoint that let the kids suffer the life from an early age, and they'll be tougher.
They will be tougher. They absolutely will be tougher. And I think as an adults now, things have gotten so easy for us that we rarely have any real suffering going on. In fact, the kind of suffering we have is horrible because now we have stress and anxiety. It doesn't go away. I mean, people are running around like with probably chronically high
Look,
levels of cortisol, which is really bad in the long term,
this had crossed my mind earlier when you were talking about that 20-year-old uh, who is avoiding pain, and I'm like, yeah, but if you've already got stress, you've got a job, you're not making that much money, you can't afford a house, you're having a hard time dating because of the way the world is today, all those things come together, and we expect you to then go out and do something hard and painful because it's going to make you better. I mean, that's putting a lot on your plate, right?
Yeah.
That and the fact that in a time when families were still very close and we still had big families, you could rely on family members to get input, to get
Yeah.
feedback, to live with home. All those types of things were kind of safety valves for you to help handle these hard situations. But now the expectation is you need to be able to do things on your own. And society has given you the rights. You've got the voting rights. You've got, birth control. You've got, everything you need is available. You don't need your parents to drive you to whatever anymore. You got Uber. You don't
Yeah.
need to have someone cook dinner
Mm.
for you anymore. You don't even need to learn how to cook anymore. You got Uber.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the concept of you needing to have skills and ability has shifted. The skills and ability you need anymore don't have as many tangible results. I'm not going to say they don't
What
have
do you,
results, but they don't have as
wait a
many
minute, hang on.
tangible results.
Define what you mean by that. Because I think I agree with you, but I just feel like I want to argue a little bit right
I
now.
would say learning how to garden and grow your own vegetables has a tangible result. You get food.
Okay.
Learning how to cook gives you tangible results. Not only do you learn the process of cooking and making good food, and better understanding food and food science and the like, but basically you're empowered to make something. So you have a tangible result. You can make a meal, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree
That's
with
what I
that.
mean by
I would
tangible result,
rather.
right?
I really want to change the word if I can. Tangible
Okay.
results fine, but I'd rather change the word skills. You're learning skills, right?
Okay. No, but even the other things I'm talking about are skills, right? So now let's talk about the things that don't have tangible results in my mind. Social media, learning how to post, learning how to make videos, learning how to do all those things. The things that we did for this, we hope they'll have tangible results. But when you look at the majority of people, there isn't no tangible result. Everyone who learns to cook gets a skill that gives them tangible results. Everyone who learns how to use social media, some small percentage of them will get tangible results.
So
So,
you're
so
saying,
my
okay, hang on. Like, define tangible result.
a tangible result is something that to me immediately has a positive impact, or I say positive impact on your life.
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, let's put the social media side for a minute. But knowing how to cook a meal, and
Knowing how to
especially,
sew, knowing how to paint the house, knowing how to
yeah,
fix your car, change the oil. These are all things that we've pawned off to other people because they're labor that we can easily commoditize and have someone else do. But I would have called that common knowledge at one
yeah.
point, and it's no longer common knowledge.
No, you're exactly right. Yeah, because this is stuff you just learned from your dad, right? You're
Your
out
dad,
fixing
your
the
mom,
car,
whatever, right? Yeah.
and you're like, get the wrench or whatever. It's so funny, and this is a long time ago, but um, there's a place called Kite Hill in South Orange County. I don't know if you're aware
Oh
of it or
yeah,
not.
yeah.
So they fly airplanes up there. So I was talking to a kid, and he was like, he broke
Remote
his
RC airplanes, right?
yeah RC airplane. Beautiful view actually. And he was up there, and he broke his airplane, and I'm like, okay, you go get a screwdriver, and we can fix this thing, right? I guess his parents dropped him off. And then he told me, he just looked at me like, I don't really know how to use a screwdriver. And I'm like, what? And he's like 12 years old. I'm like, okay, hang on. Just, let's put the brakes on this. What do you mean you don't know how to use a screwdriver? It's like,
Yep.
this is what's going on my mind right now. And he's like, well, my dad never taught me. I go, what? It's like, what do you mean your dad never taught you? He's like, well, my dad was a doctor, and he just never taught me how to use a screwdriver. And I'm like, well, holy crap. Okay, I guess I'll be your dad's substitute. You're going to learn how to use a screwdriver today. It's not that hard. In less than a minute. And so I thought that was just the craziest thing in the world. I mean, for me, that was like, what do
Well,
you mean you don't know how to use a
I
screwdriver?
remember Food Network, God, 20 years ago, I think it was, had a show called How to Boil Water.
Yeah, I remember that show.
And it
Yeah.
literally took people who had no, I mean, almost could not learn and know how to boil water, and you taught them, basic cooking skills. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I laughed at the premise of that show, and yet obviously there was an audience for it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, there's so many skills like I'm embarrassed to admit, but I'm going to go ahead and do them just for public. Like for the longest time, I did not know how to sharpen a knife. And I know it's important to have a sharp knife, and so I went out and I bought a knife sharpener, and I'm sure I'm a hack, right? I agree with that, but it's like awesome. You just put this thing on and go, and you got a sharp knife, right? And I'm sure people are cringing. In fact, in fact,
Sorry, I hope it's not a good knife.
I don't know, but let me tell you something, Chris. When it comes out of this machine, it's sharper than it went in. So it's like for me, that was a win, right? In fact, just the other day, I'm gonna have to. I'll admit something else actually. So I wanted to make tea, right? So I want to start drinking green tea. In fact, you told me this, and I'm like, okay, I got the tea thing, but I'm like, Chris, okay, how do you heat the water? It's like you're like, wait,
Yeah,
what do you mean?
that was an interesting conversation because I think you never made loose leaf tea before, right? Tea bags
Yeah,
are
never made it.
simple to
Yeah,
understand, but loose leaf tea I think is what we're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, right, exactly. And so I think we went on Amazon together, and you told me there's what do you call it? like electric kettles or something like
Electric
that.
kettles, yeah. I
And
saw
so
the
I
same one we have
actually
now in
ended
Costco.
up
Yeah,
buying two, and they're awesome. I mean, literally, Chris, you just pour the water in. You literally set the exact temperature degree you want, 180 degrees for green tea, and you hit it, and 2 minutes later, the thing's done.
that's
And
why
my
you live in a country like Japan where people drink tea, hot tea all the time, and they have really nice hot pot ones that that are electric, and they have timers to go on at certain times, so you have hot
yeah,
water when
yeah,
you want
yeah,
it, and no, and then I won't even get into how the ones in Europe are better than the ones here because they actually have they heat up even faster. The electricity there, the electrical outlets provide more amperage, I think it is, so it gets hot faster.
yeah.
Um,
So they operate at higher voltage,
well, they
220
higher
volts.
voltage, but I don't think it's just the voltage. I think whatever but the point is, I think it's about if it takes you 5 minutes to boil water here, it takes you like 3.5 there.
Yeah, that makes sense actually, because the formula is it's you take volts times amps equal power in watts, and so more watts, it's just faster heating. Yep, yep, absolutely.
So and anyway, yeah, no, but so the common skills like the ability to sew. I'm not good at it, but I can sew, right?
Yeah,
Ability to garden, to I mean, growing a garden was something we did when I was 12, 13 years old. We did in the backyard.
yeah,
And I don't
yeah.
think my dad was particularly good at it, but he learned and taught me how to do it, right? To me, there's all these skills, and a big part of this might be just because people don't have time anymore.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what parents know may not, it takes time to transfer that into the heads of your kids.
It's
And if
time.
you're if
Yes.
you're if you're working, if both parents are working and they don't have time on the weekends, and you've got other interests and stuff, and the kids have other interests because they have sports and all kinds of stuff going on,
Yeah.
where is the time just to transfer the stuff out of your head into the kids' heads?
Well, I will tell you something that's awesome, Chris, is YouTube, man. YouTube is your friend, actually. You can go online and learn anything
It
with
doesn't
YouTube.
replace your parents though.
No, well,
That's a
it
different
can.
way
It
of
certainly
thinking.
can, right? I mean,
Well, no. I've learned. I am a big fan of learning stuff off of YouTube.
yeah,
I've learned plumbing stuff that I didn't know how to do. I've learned how to solder. I've learned other things as well. But YouTube is not a proxy for your parents. Sorry.
no, 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 it's not. But it can get you through things, right? It can get you because you can literally type pretty much anything you want, and you can get 100 YouTube videos popping up in a few seconds,
Well,
actually. And most
one
of
of the
them are junk,
things.
but you'll find a good one in there every once in a while.
Yes, and usually it's by some guy who's 70, 80 years old who's been doing it for half a
Yeah,
decade or half a century. One thing that I know you were working on was learning electronics,
yeah, right,
right?
exactly.
Because that's another one of those skills that I think at a base level, a lot of people knew the basics of. They didn't know all the
They do,
formulas and
yeah,
stuff, but they understood the basics. And this was probably at a time before we had a lot of the rules and regulations in play. So people did a lot of things on their own, and I'm sure some of them got hurt. But
yeah,
the concept of like changing your oil is not a hard thing to do.
yeah,
But I bet you most people haven't done it. How to change a tire is something you should probably be able
yeah,
to know
right.
how to do. And these are again common. What I would have considered common knowledge in people born in the 70s, maybe even the 80s. But after that, I think it kind of fell by the wayside as parenting changed.
Well, and because you didn't have to do it, right? I mean,
No, because we
because
had so much money in the economy that people specialized and did all those jobs for you.
yeah. So, for instance, if I have a cell phone and I got a AAA card, it's like I don't really have no. I don't need to know how to change a tire, right? I mean, I can
Except
get
when
by.
you're in the middle of nowhere, but that's a different issue.
Well, yeah, okay, no. I mean, I think you should. I think you should know how to do it. Yeah,
And the one thing is, the more you know, the more you can figure out.
yeah, right, right.
Right?
Because you
If
understand
you
underlying principles.
if you don't know how to cook, then you can't
Yeah,
figure out things that require using the stove and all that kind of stuff, right? But
yeah,
if I know how to cook and I know how to bake and I know how to do this, I can probably figure out roughly how I would how I would cook on a campfire, how I would grill
yeah,
something. I would extrapolate from the knowledge I have how to do that
yes,
stuff. So
yeah.
having a breadth of basic knowledge is something that helps you figure things out. And this is
I
true of
do.
stuff on the internet. The more you learn, the more you're able to use it. Trivial knowledge is fun because it's trivia, but it's useful because you can tie things together. I often think if it's a challenge to try to remember stuff without Googling it. Like if I'm like, what was that thing? And I will purposely not Google it to see if I can remember it
Yeah,
or to see if I can guess what it is. I bet you this is something related to this, blah, 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 blah. And that's a huge part of my critical thinking, though. It's like when I hear something on the news or a story or someone tells me a fact that sounds kind of like, huh? I don't get that. If I can't fit it into my worldview and all the facts that I've got, then I'm immediately on the defensive on whether I trust that fact or not.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
So when I
Exactly.
hear criticism of Trump or Harris, or when I hear a particular comment that this person did that or something else, and as much as I love conspiracy theories, at the end of the day, if what you say doesn't fit my worldview, then I'm immediately on the defensive to try to disprove it.
Well, and your brain is good at that because if you've learned all these other things, I don't know what I call it. Maybe call it pass the sniff test or something. Like in
Yeah, the
engineering,
sniff
it's
test.
called T. What is it? That looks about right. Engineering thing. It's like you have all this knowledge. You're like, that just doesn't seem right. It's like you can't strap 2-inch wings on a bowling ball. It's just not gonna fly.
Well,
It's just too heavy.
so one I think I may have mentioned it was I was listening to the news, gosh, a couple years ago, and someone mentioned that there are only 15 million Jews in the world.
Only 15 what? 15 million?
Jewish people,
Oh,
Jews.
interesting. Okay.
And I'm like going through my head going, wait, wait, wait. Jews are politicians. They run huge companies. They're heavy in media and in entertainment. They're very powerful as a group. How could there only be 15 million out of 7 billion people in the world?
Yeah.
They've got to be more than that. So I went online and started looking. And I went to Wikipedia, and Wikipedia pretty much said there's 15 million. I said, I don't believe it. Wikipedia can be wrong. So I went to so many sources, including Jewish sources, and yeah, basically the number was 15 million.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I'm like, it doesn't fit my worldview of how impactful Jews are in the world society
Yeah. Right.
that there's only 15 million of them in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that's where a lot of anti-Semitism comes from, is this kind of disparity of size versus impact. Right? I think that's a huge
Oh, it
source of
could
that.
be. Yeah, it could be. I
Right?
mean, yeah, that's
But
interesting.
and then so I mentioned it in passing to someone else, a higher up person in my company, and they're like they just disbelieved when I said it.
Yeah, you're like, this something's not. It's
and
just
and
something
and,
doesn't
and I'm like,
click.
I've done my research, I've done this, I've done, and they wouldn't believe it. But they wouldn't go look into it either. They're not the kind of person
Yeah,
that try to figure it out. And
it's just not
I
that
was the kind of
important.
person
So
that tried to figure it out. But honestly, I'm like, that was one that was a disconnect where the disconnect was I was wrong in my
yeah,
assumption on that. Right?
yeah.
But it didn't pass my sniff test. And then when I learned about it, oh crap! But then I had to build a new thesis around this idea, and that's where I think my now viewpoint that a big chunk of anti-Semitism comes from what I would call the disproportionate success of Jewish people overall versus the number of Jewish people in the
Oh,
world.
that's
I don't know of any
interesting.
other religions that have that level of impact.
I guess it could be. They are God's chosen people, right? So
Yeah, but I mean, if it's easy to pick on the little guy, right?
yeah,
So here's a group of only 15 million people. Let's go pick them, blame everything on them,
yeah, yeah.
right? And we're all victims. It's not our fault. It's their fault over there. And there's only 15 million of them anyway, so it's easy to blame them.
You got to be careful doing that kind of blame game because here's the
Sure.
problem with that, right? Here's the problem. Well, it's way easier to do that, right? Saying, yeah, it's that dude's fault, not my fault, actually. The problem with that, though, Chris, the problem with it is you give away that power because now you no longer know have you mentally you've blocked yourself because you no longer have the ability to advance because you think, and you're right, that it's their fault, actually. So that means I can't move forward, as opposed to saying, wait a minute, maybe it's my actions that are keeping me from moving forward. It's not those guys necessarily. Maybe I need to start changing things so I can get more of what I
But
want.
Machiavelli taught us that this is one of the easiest ways to do it. You find someone else to blame. It's not your fault that things didn't go wrong. It's someone else's fault. Let's go blame them. Then let's build a coalition against them. Let's ostracize them. Let's throw them out. Let's kill them off. Do whatever, right? And now if we're all happy, yeah, it's not my fault. I'm the leader, but I'm the good guy, and those were the bad guys. And then the economy tanks again. People start to suffer again. So I find the next group. Oh no, no, now it's this group over here. It's the Japanese. It's the Asians. It's the Chinese. It's whatever.
Okay,
They're the
okay,
ones, right?
okay,
You
okay.
pick the next smallest group. You go after them because again, it's easy to go after the little guy, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the
so let's
Chinese killing
let's
off the
let's
Uyghurs,
let's start attacking. Okay, let's do this. I feel like kind of mixing it up a little bit because we talked about this before. You want to? Let's talk about fat people. Let's talk about fat shaming.
Yes.
So
Oh,
you
actually,
want to bring
fat
that up?
shaming. Yes, yes, that was on my list. All right.
That's right. Yeah,
Um.
I know you mentioned that. So
So,
I thought
so
it'd be a
let.
nice transition.
Where are you coming from? I'll tell you where it came onto my radar this week.
Well, so I'm watching some of this show, and it's like it's a British show, and it's interesting just for like fat and skinny people. It's like these people that are 600 or 700 pounds actually, and they
Hmm.
blame everything but themselves for getting there. And the problem with that is you can never get healthy. I don't care how much you blame something else. This is your problem, and it's your responsibility. And yeah, you may have had bad information, and yeah, a million things. But at some point, you've got to say, I've got to take the reins of this thing and try to fix it, right? Because otherwise, I'm going to suffer perpetually.
So is it possible that you can blame someone else and yet get to a point where you're empowered enough to change that?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that
absolutely. I think absolutely.
because to me it's like it's everyone else's fault, therefore I don't have to do anything, or it's totally in with my power no matter what happens. Those are kind of like the extremes. Can you
Well,
be in the middle? It is their fault, but I can do something about it.
I will. This is the way I like to see. It may not be 100% your fault, right? But it is 100% your responsibility to fix the problem. Because
Oh, so this goes.
blaming the other guy is not going to fix it, right?
So we had a short on this, and I called it the spectrum of responsibility.
Oh, there you go. Okay, okay,
On one side, it's totally your fault. On the other side, it's not your fault at all, and
okay.
nothing is on the extreme.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing is on the
I,
extremes.
I would rather the fault in some way fault doesn't even matter to me. I'd rather you just take the responsibility and say, look, I've got to take the reins of this thing and I gotta go solve this problem, right?
But fault works well because there are things where it's not anyone's fault. Like it happened in nature, right? You
Yeah,
had a
could
natural
be. Yeah,
disaster. Is that
yeah,
your fault? Is that someone else's fault? No. And yet, well, it's the fault of nature. Nature is the one that came down on me. God came down
yeah.
on me. I don't know. Karma came down on me.
Whatever. It just yeah,
The idea is just is to say you are uninvolved in it and you are strictly the victim. One is you're the victim, and one is you're the agent to make things happen. Right?
yeah. Well, I think you can be the victim and the agent at the same time, right?
Can you? I mean, you can be. Okay, let's. Can you be? Maybe you're a victim, but you're not the victim. To me,
Yeah,
if
I
you're
guess it
the
depends on how you
victim,
define.
you're
Yeah,
powerless.
you're a
If
victim.
you're
Yeah,
a victim, you just recognize, I'm a victim of crappy chances here. Okay, I got to go overcome that. I'm not tall enough my dad wanted to be a commercial pilot, but he was too short
yeah,
at the time. Now they would allow it, but back then they didn't. And so he had a crappy hand. He couldn't be a commercial pilot, so he got
yeah.
a private pilot license and he flew that way, but he was never a commercial pilot.
Yeah.
So you know,
You just got to
um,
play the hand you're dealt, right? And here's something that I'd want to show for encouragement. And this is something I've really been thinking about lately. So I'm working on getting myself more healthy. I've got diabetes, and like pretty much everybody in the world, well, not everybody in the world, but most people that I respect and take their advices, is that typically through diet and exercise, this can almost in every case be 100% reversed, right? Almost in every single case.
the medical profession doesn't believe that, but everyone who's studying it seems to think so.
Seems to think, right? Or at least, even if you can't 100% fix it, you can just radically put yourself in a better position.
You just get your blood sugar down to under 6 or 5.7 or whatever, and it's like you don't have diabetes at that point.
Yeah, right,
Regardless,
right. At
regardless of
least,
whether they say you don't have it or not. I mean,
and
that's
lose
the
some
number.
weight and all this sort of stuff, right? You're just going to feel way better. So the first time I ever thought, so I've started exercising like pretty much every day for almost an hour a day, and my body is starting to change. And it's like for the first time in my life, I started thinking of this thought. It's like, whoa, I have influence over I can actually start to shape my body. I can actually change my, I can change how my body looks and feels and literally the shape of it by doing certain things and eating in certain ways. And I've never had that belief system before. And the problem is, if you don't believe you can, the chances of you doing it are pretty darn slim, you know?
Yeah, I often get a kind of a two conflicting viewpoints. One is I believe I can. The other thing is I don't believe it's something in the back of my mind says it's not worth the pain.
Okay, that's a different problem, actually.
Yeah,
That's
and
different.
so they conflict with each other. It's like,
Yeah.
uh, so yeah, I think I told you since the beginning of the month I've been doing 100 squats a day,
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
right? And yeah, I was just noticing yesterday when I was doing it, like my lower legs seem all muscle now. I got no fat in the lower legs,
Yeah, they
right?
grow. That's what happens,
I got
actually. Yeah.
plenty of fat in the upper legs, but not in the lower. And I'm looking at these. I've always had big calves, and I'm like, there is a change there. The knees still give me a problem, and I need to. I hopefully I can get that to be pretty
Yeah.
normal. But 100 squats is not that hard to do.
Okay,
So
I'm
I
having a
think
hard time hearing you, Chris. Can you go closer to the microphone or
Oh
something?
yeah, I said 100 squats isn't that hard to do. I think what I need to do is start adding some weight, make it harder. But I got
Yeah.
used to the
Are
100
you
squat,
feeling your
100
chest?
body weight squats.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed my arm here. I'm actually starting to get some muscles because I've been doing bicep, tricep pretty much every day for 30 days, and it's amazing. You're like, wow, my body's actually changing. I didn't. For me, I didn't think it was possible, right? Let alone, and if you don't think it's possible, then you don't even have. Am I willing to pay the price? That doesn't even come into the equation, right? It sounds like you've got a different problem, but your problem is a simpler problem to solve. You're like, am I willing to pay the price to get that
Yeah,
result?
I mean when I was down more weight last year than this year, I actually began to see more of a V shape instead of a
Yeah, right, right.
cylinder
Yeah,
shape. And I'm like, I still had the fat, but it was on the front of the tummy. So yeah. And I'm like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, I can actually wear a t-shirt and not be ashamed of it.
And it's so crazy because it opens you up to different possibilities. Where like Jamar at our Toastmasters group, he's known this his whole life, right? He's like, of course, right? Like what I put in my mouth and how I move my body every day, it changes. It can literally change my body. He just knew this probably instinctively for I don't know. It'd be fun to talk to him about that.
But this is so. This goes back to the cigarette conversation we were having earlier. People know it's not good for you. I think nowadays we all know that the foods aren't good for us. I would say in the 70s and
No,
80s, I would say in the 70s and 80s, we were taught it was good for us. Just like cigarettes, we were taught that, oh, cigarettes are good for you because you take deep breaths and it's calming. And, that's what they said in the 50s, right? So I
yeah,
think in the 70s and the 80s, as food science changed and they made all this mass produced processed food, we were taught this is good. This is science. And it was science of profits and efficiency. It wasn't science of health.
I think probably most. I guess we ought to define what you mean by knowing, because there's one thing that I know about something, and there's another thing that's like I know this like in my bones, like in my soul. It's like I understand this concept, and I think those are different forms of knowing.
Yeah, so what I'm talking about is what the media and the government tell you, along with what the facts seem to say and what all the different studies and science is telling you. So we came from a time when in the 70s we still were very respectful of science.
Yeah, right,
The
right.
scientific studies had a lot of weight. We now know that a lot of the health studies done in the 70s demonized fat and
Right.
evangelized sugar.
Sugar,
Um,
yeah,
and
right.
and and then what happened was, with all the farm subsidies and corn being very cheap and easy to produce, um, all the companies who were looking for a way to make food cheaper
Yeah, right.
found multiple ways to make food cheaper by basically not making it food anymore. Let's take the
Yeah,
corn and turn it into corn syrup. Let's
yeah,
grind it up and turn it into something else. So basically, they took all of the raw materials that we eat on a day-to-day basis and they turned it into ingredients for other things. But they're no longer carrots. There's like carrot powder. There's no longer, beans, bean powder. They grind it up and they emulsify it and they do all kinds of stuff to it. They've taken oil out of seeds that don't really have that much oil. So the only way to do it is to use chemical extraction, which does, I mean, doesn't
paint the
sound healthy
picture.
when you think about it. That one should be obviously not good. But
Well,
when you think of all that, and then they said, "Oh, well, we need to eat this food pyramid. It's a balanced diet." So the government's telling you one thing, science is telling you we've got you covered. We're we're telling you what the good stuff is, and then the food companies are saying we're going to keep it cheap and we're going to make it just what you need. We're going to fortify it with vitamins. We're going to do all that stuff,
yeah,
and so you didn't have to think about it, and you were expected to trust the institutions.
and we're gonna make it really tasty, right? It's gonna be really tasty.
Well, yeah, and why did they make it tasty? And the only thing I can think of is profit, right? That bliss point, the point where the fat, the sugar, and the salt hit your tongue perfectly, and you just
Yeah,
can't
the
can't stop
crunch
it.
and everything. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's
So,
and did I mention it to you? The when I what really got me was back when Atkins was the big diet.
oh yeah,
I
that's a long time ago.
remember I remember looking at a box of cereal and realizing just how much sugar was in a box
Yeah,
of
yeah,
cereal.
yeah, yeah,
And I looked at it, and it was Frosted Flakes, I think it was, and it was like 60% sugar.
yeah. Right.
And what the realization was, it says, oh, serving size 50 grams or whatever it is,
Yeah,
right? And then it said amount of sugar in one serving, 30 grams.
yeah.
We're talking grams, grams of sugar, grams of whatever. I don't care. A gram is a gram.
That's a
So
lot of sugar.
a 50-gram serving with 30 grams of sugar in it, that's 60% sugar.
Yeah.
And from that point on, I was like, oh my God, they are
Well,
feeding you straight sugar.
here's what I'm gonna say, right? Because I don't think people fully understand, because I don't fully understand yet. So I think people know this, right? I think they know that broccoli and chicken is better than a donut. I think people know that.
Hmm.
No doubt about that question.
Sure.
But I still think a lot of what people are eating, I don't think they know that it's a bad option for you. I still don't think they
So
fully know.
broccoli and chicken, is that better than chicken fingers and broccoli with melted cheese sauce on it?
Certainly better than chicken
Sorry,
fingers, because most,
chicken fingers and frozen broccoli in like a carbonara sauce.
you know, I don't. There's a lot of fat that you probably don't need. It just adds extra calories. So I would think yes, probably the real chicken with real broccoli is going to be better than the other option. But at the same time, I'm going to say that I don't know that the other option is bad for you. It's not like ding dongs and cupcakes
Yeah.
for dinner,
So
right? That's
now you
different.
go and you look at the ingredients. The
Yes.
oil that's in the carbonara sauce that they made for the broccoli. The broccoli is probably fine. It's just frozen broccoli.
Yeah.
But
Right.
the oil that went in there is seed oils, and if depending on what your viewpoint is on seed oils, we're very that seems to be the current bad guy is seed oils. That then is not good for you. Look at the chemicals
Well,
that are put in there to keep it from going bad. Those
yeah.
probably aren't good for your body either. So
I
you
know.
start looking at everything that goes into making something palatable and long lasting and profitable, and a lot of it is stuff that shouldn't probably be going into a human body.
Well, and this is what I still don't know. So there's Dr. Mike, right? Very skilled dude. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah,
He says this whole seed oil thing is complete BS. He goes, it's not a problem. Right.
yeah.
And so that's when in my mind, I'm not 100% clear if it's super bad or super good for you. Now, my choice is still have the best quality olive oil I can get. I think that's a better choice, but it's
I
like,
think olive oil is better for you to begin with. The issue with the seed oils is the extraction method, right? It's
yeah,
and
yeah,
the fact that you don't just squeeze. I mean, if you literally was just squeeze it and it comes out, that's one thing. But they extract
yeah,
it using chemicals. They
yeah. And I'm
extract it
not
using
saying that it's good
formaldehyde or
for
some other
you,
chemical. Yeah.
but maybe it's not as
So,
bad as everybody
what,
thinks. I
what,
don't know.
what,
I don't know. This is what I'm saying. I'm not sure.
so the
I'm
question would
sure.
be. So I think maybe a better question then is if we compare homemade chicken fingers versus store-bought chicken fingers. If we can create a homemade carbonara sauce or a white sauce broccoli versus something you buy in pre-made in the store, because then you're talking about, oh, I'm using cream, I'm using cheese, I'm using butter, I'm using chicken with a skin on it, all that kind of stuff. Now you're talking about something that is closer to an unprocessed format.
I would think so. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think the what the raw ingredients are really better, right?
Yeah, and that's not even getting into the quality of the individual raw ingredients, grass-fed beef
Right.
versus
Yeah.
mass-produced beef versus other stuff, right? All that plays into it too. But the first thing is just to recognize, get away from the processing, go back as close as you can to as you're able to where you live and what's available to you. Go back as
Yeah.
close as you can to the farm. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Typically, yeah. Yeah. The less messing around with the food, typically almost everybody agrees is better. Almost
Takes
everybody.
more time. It takes more effort to shop and keep the refrigerator stocked. It takes
Hmm.
you have to learn to cook if you don't know how to cook.
Hmm.
It's not. I mean, it's time consuming, and the fact that we expect now dual income families out there to be doing their thing, and if with several people having multiple jobs and side hustles, how do you have time to eat
Yeah.
to
No, it's
cook and
difficult.
not to eat to cook?
Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah. So what I'm doing right now for me personally is I'm I'm trying to buy the healthiest food that I can afford, that I can get access to, and avoiding the like super ultra processed foods. I mean, that's the general advice most people try to go with the freshest, best quality food you can afford. Is probably going to be better long term than just buying junk food.
And I think they actually have I forgot which book I read. There's like 4 levels of processed food.
Okay, I don't know actually, but
So I
I
think
can
there's
believe that.
totally unprocessed, and they consider that like you pick it and that's it. Picking it was the processing, you know. And then there's mildly processed foods, which might be packaging, you know, cutting things up, that sort of thing, right? And then you start getting into the processed and like heavily or mega processed foods. It was a book about processed foods, and it was talking about our diets, and basically, you know, talking about how so many of the ingredients aren't even tested by the government. They're generally the grass generally something where they're accepted as safe. You know, but the idea here being, I would say, going to the mildly processed. I think in my mind, things have to be packaged. I get that. We live in a
Yeah,
world
right.
where things
Right.
get shipped. Things need to be packaged. But anything that comes in a package, if I can't, if I don't know what those ingredients are and they sound like they're out of a textbook, then
Right.
that's processed.
Probably
And
avoid it.
if it has more than 5 ingredients, I begin to consider it processed.
Yeah, and that's probably a general good rule. I mean, I don't know that it's hard and fast or whatever, but yeah, for example, like you can go to Whole Foods, right? You can buy cantaloupe and watermelon, and then they have containers which cut up cantaloupe and watermelon for you. I don't think
Yeah,
I don't consider that. I know, yes, it's technically processed,
it's
but
technically
in my
processed.
definition, it's not processed like bad processing, right?
So I'm looking at the snack bag of cheese chips that I've got here,
Okay,
and
that looks like very processed food to me,
yeah,
actually.
I'm just looking at the ingredients on here. There's about a dozen ingredients on here.
Yeah, probably better to avoid that. But at the same time, Chris, but here's the other thing, right? This is why so much of this depends. Is that if eating that maybe is not the best for you, but it's not horrible for you, prevents you from eating the really bad stuff, then I would say, hey man, you're moving in the right direction. We don't need perfection. Let's just at least just start moving in the
Well,
right direction.
you know, I know some people think we're carb phobic or people are carb phobic. Like this has 2 grams of carbs and 2 grams of fiber, which means
Okay,
net
fine.
carbs are zero, right?
Yeah.
If I were to get a donut,
Oh,
I've got
now we're talking like that's a
I've got
different level.
carbs. I've got carbs from the dough, from the wheat. I've got carbs from the sugar that goes into that,
Yeah,
and then of course I've got the fat from the fryer,
that's right.
right? I
Right.
probably have no protein at all.
Yeah.
And so you know, your two food sources are sugar, are carbs and fat.
Yeah.
And your body usually does one and then goes to the other when it runs out of carbs, right? And it does
Yeah.
carbs first and run. So basically, what you're doing is you're giving it both fuel sources. You're going to burn the carbs. The body's then going to store the fat because it doesn't need it,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you're stuck getting fatter.
So I've made a rule for myself, right? And I think this is a pretty good rule. You evaluate this rule for me. If I eat something and it satisfies me and my hunger drive goes down, as a general rule, I'm like, that's probably a good food. Not knowing anything else, that's probably a good food. As opposed to eating something where you just keep wanting more and more and you find yourself getting compulsive about eating it, that's probably a bad food for me. Like chips, for instance, right? You
Oh
just
yeah,
can't stop.
chips, sweets. Those are the kinds of things that you know they keep feeding your desire.
Or,
Um,
or yeah, or if you get like high or you get a buzz or you start getting really like good feeling about it, you're like, that's probably not. Yeah, as opposed to, and like I love a great steak, but it's like, man, I'm satisfied. It's like I don't have I don't get like high. I don't get this buzz off of eating a steak as I would off 5 donuts.
no, I don't. I actually can't. I found I can't eat as much steak as I used to. I need leaner steaks. Too much
Yeah,
fat, and it really
yeah. But it feels
sits
good
heavy.
because you're like, okay, I've had enough. I feel good. I'm not stuffed, but I'm good.
I think I
I'm
mentioned to you earlier
fine.
today. The other day, I had these chicken fingers, you know, chicken strips that were just chicken breast strips is what they were.
Okay, yeah.
And I grilled. It was a little over a pound. I grilled them and I put a little seasoning on them, and I ate them for lunch. And I wasn't hungry at all until the next morning.
Yeah, I think in my mind that's probably a good food for you because I think if you listen to your body will tell you. I think we sort of have this, and this is something,
They've
man.
done
I
that
don't know.
study, by the way.
What's
They've done
that?
that as a study. They've done that as a study.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I could go both ways on this. I think you got to listen to your body, and I think you have to have. I think your body has a certain innate intelligence whether this is good for you or not. It's like, I can have a salad and I can kind of tell if it's fresh and it's good as opposed to something I get at McDonald's. I'm like, there's just something not right about that. And you
Well,
kind of
so
just know.
animals. I mean, I forgot what there was a set of cows, and they were comparing cows that were getting that their milk was they were getting sick and not producing milk, and other cows that were able to produce milk. And it turns out the fields they were in, they had access to herbs that were not in the other field, and they would go and they would graze on these things because they knew that these things were helping them out. Right? The animal just instinctively knew to eat these herbs to help them
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And the study I remember was they were other one they were talking about was they took a bunch of kids, some with medical conditions and the like, and they put a whole bunch of food in front of them, including things like cod liver oil and I mean nuts and all just a variety of things.
Yeah.
And um, in the first day or two, I guess the kids ate a fair amount of sweets because sweets were options
Yeah.
as
Right.
well. But pretty quickly they learned they converted to eating what they needed. And so there
Yeah.
was
That's
one kid
interesting. Yeah.
one kid who had rickets, I think it was, and I guess cod liver oil is the treatment for that. So he drank cod liver oil for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it was till his rickets went away, and then he stopped by himself, no one telling him anything.
And that's I think that makes a lot of sense to me, and I think that system works unless it gets so polluted with other junk and chemicals that it just sort of breaks,
Well,
right?
processed food, right? Because processed food is designed to hit that bliss point we talked about. It's not
Yeah,
designed for nutrition. But
yeah,
we also look at the fact that the even the agricultural industry has been taken over by profits, right? So spinach, a bunch of spinach today only has 25% of the vitamin A, I think it is, that,
yeah,
that it had,
yeah,
10, 20, 30 years, whatever years ago, because it's actually designed for looks and for speed and for durability.
yeah. Hey, can you go closer to the mic? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry, I keep pulling back.
There you go.
Okay.
That's way better, actually.
Um,
Yeah, I,
so
I think I think that makes sense.
back to fat shaming for a second, though.
Oh, let's shame
So
some fat people, actually. Yeah.
what came to my mind was my wife was mentioning that she saw a commercial on TV, and Megan Trainor, who's a singer, was doing a commercial, and she
Okay.
had that song all about the bass, all about that bass. It
Doesn't
was
ring a
making
bell.
fun of. She had a big butt, right? So it was making fun of that.
Hmm.
And now she's skinny, she's slender, right? And I think if I remember correctly, she got some flack for that, just like I think Adele got flack for losing weight.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
remember, is it Lizzo was originally she didn't like being told that she needed to lose weight, and I think recently she's
yeah,
actually said she's going to, all for health reasons. Like these people are losing weight for health reasons, not necessarily to fit some stereotypical look.
right, right, right.
But the idea that there's this stereotyped good look that a woman's supposed to have, usually
Yes,
slender or skinny. Someone doesn't meet that, so they get pressured by society, by media, by whatever to become that.
yes,
And so the rebellion against that was to say, no, I'm just going to remain fat. I'm happy to be
yeah,
fat, right, or whatever. And then, the people on the health side going, no, no, forget all those people that say you need to lose weight because that's the pretty perfect look. You need to lose weight because it's just healthier for you.
yeah,
And
right.
people were ignoring that because it became this fight between, fight the system or whatever. And
Yeah,
and now people are like, and so I was just thinking to myself, if I saw a fat guy, would I think he needs to lose weight? The same that I would think if I saw a fat woman.
probably
Do I
not.
need to lose weight?
Probably not.
And so I'm thinking there's that sexual bias there that men are allowed to be old, fat, gray haired, and women aren't.
Well, I don't think I agree with that. I think men they can get away with a little bit more, but certainly like if I see an overweight dude, right? My first thought is he's not disciplined. I'm trained by society not to
Yeah.
say that, but I'm thinking he's not disciplined. He's not taking care of himself. He's weak. He'd be easy to beat in a fight. I mean, there's all these things that immediately come to mind.
You also see the way people wear their fat. which is an interesting thing, right? I mean, because genetically you gain fat in different areas
Yeah, right.
depending on your genetics, your age, and a variety of other things. But
Yeah,
then you
right.
also just see outright what I'll call unstructured fat hanging off of bodies.
Yeah, right, right.
It
But
looks
that's
different than
really
someone.
morbidly
Yeah, I
obese.
mean, and I see people riding the little scooters around the store and stuff like that. And if you're riding a scooter because I see you got a broken leg or something like that,
Yeah,
it doesn't even occur to me. But when I see that they're overweight, yeah, you're right. All that judgmental crap goes through my head.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, I know this is a funny thing because I know we're not supposed to do that. Because I'm probably lacking compassion in doing that. But there's something just evolutionary, just something instinctual, like just knowing, oh, that's a weak one. There's something wrong there.
You're gonna cull them out of the herd.
Yeah, yeah, in a sense. And I don't know if I'm the only one. I'm sure there's other people that think that same thing,
That's
actually.
gonna be our short. Cull the fat people.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we're gonna get some pissed
Well,
off
that's like
people,
what 70% of America at this point, including us.
not including us. Yeah, yeah. Have you watched? Do you watch Reacher at all?
Yeah.
It's like I
Yeah.
love him because he's like he calls it "Hey Fatso" or whatever. He's like, I love that dude.
If you saw pictures of the actor, 10 years ago, he was not anywhere near that big.
Yeah,
He's put on that muscle, and Thomas DeLauer talks to him quite often, and apparently, they talked about his diet and what he eats. His weakness is cookies, apparently.
sugar, sugar, man, sugar, fat. It's just holy Toledo's
But
actually.
that other guy in the most recent season, he was massive.
Yeah. Oh, did you see that
Bad
the
guy?
the first fight they got in? The guy just bam, just like
Yeah. Did you finish watching it? The season?
I love. I think I finished the whole season because it
Yeah.
was so interesting. And then Reacher's like, some person was talking to Reacher. He's like, "What happened?" He's like, "Well, normally big people don't move that." I didn't
Yeah.
expect that.
I,
And
I
yeah,
find I, I enjoy the story, but I'm also a little offended by the story about just how two-dimensional he is. He's really
but man, that's
really
what makes him
there.
great, though. I love that dude.
No, I
It's
think
just
it feeds that big and strong guy capable of anything. He's gonna go and be anti-system and help the little guy.
and he's crass and he's like whatever. But yeah, he helps. But he cares.
Yeah.
And I'll bet you, man, women would line up like crazy to be with that dude. That they just, it's like they don't want to admit it, but they're like, oh yeah, I like that.
Basically, the rules of society don't apply when they don't apply for him.
That's just like evolution and genetics and just,
He's got like a threshold at which someone no longer deserves to live, is what kind of in his mind, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. And then women will say, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but oh yeah, I like that one. It's like The Rock, man. Women just go nuts over The Rock.
I like The Rock. He's a nice guy.
Well,
He can also beat the hell out of you, but he's a nice guy.
they're not thinking he's a nice guy. They're thinking other stuff.
But see, the interesting thing is, yeah, the strength shows the potential for violence, right? I mean, this goes back to Jordan Peterson talking about the idea that a strong man, a man is not strong just because he's physically strong. He has to be. No, a man is not good because he doesn't fight. What if he
Right.
can't fight? A man is good because he can fight and doesn't fight.
Yeah, right, right. He's
Right?
dangerous.
When you have the capability to do bad things and you don't do them, that makes you a
Yeah.
good person. When you don't
It-
have the capability to do bad things, then you have no choice. You can't be bad.
no. Yeah.
Right? There's no ability. So basically, it's not a decision to do the good thing because you don't have a choice. Therefore,
Yeah.
I don't know. What are you? You're
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. We don't like that kind of person. Yeah. We like the guy that like has the capability but restrains himself. That actually will like help an old lady across the street, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's very, very appealing to I think just about everybody.
Because one shows strength of character, the other one doesn't, right? If you have two
Yeah.
people of equal violent capabilities, one of them does bad stuff and one of them doesn't. Why?
Yeah.
And then we put a value on the decisions that went into the guy who didn't for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he's a good human being, right? Yeah. We
That
like that.
that's our assumption is who knows, maybe he's got some other selfish desire. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure he's messed up in a thousand other ways, but it's like,
But anyway, so that's why I wanted to talk about fat shaming is the sexism associated with it, and it was coming across to me that I know it's not the only place where we've got sexist viewpoints, right? Yeah, but it just it, it was something that occurred to me. It's like, what, how do you how do you not default to that thinking? Because
Well, I
and
think
maybe
it's
you
just
just do because that's the current norm of society.
well, I mean, I think there's culture, right? And culture defines what we're supposed to do and not supposed to be do. But there's just biology. This is built in,
But
It's just
you know that in like in China years ago, I don't know, 200 years ago or whatever, it was a compliment to ask someone if they gained weight. It meant
mm,
they were wealthy and were doing well,
well fed. Yeah, yeah,
right? Have you gained weight? I mean, here you'd be insulted, but
yeah,
it's all contextual. I think we should
yeah.
bring
It's all
that back. We should bring that
yeah.
back. Have you gained weight?
Gained weight. You're looking good, man. I love that belly. um, yeah. Well, I think though, I think what people had in that particular case is not the weight, but it's like what the weight represented, what they were attracted to.
Well, yeah, it's like wearing nice clothes and I don't know, wearing a Rolex watch and driving a Ferrari or whatever. It was a status symbol,
It's status. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It meant you
exactly.
had enough money for food.
Not enough money for food.
Nowadays though, with the cheap calories being the unhealthy ones, it's a wealth status to be able to afford nice food. I mean, healthy food.
Oh my gosh, I spent a lot of money on food, but I'm thinking, it's cheaper than a hospital visit is the way I justify it, Because I was in the hospital a year ago. It's like, geez, on 4/1, 10 days ago, I was in the hospital, like wondering if they were going to cut my foot off or not.
Last year,
And
you mean?
yeah, last year, yeah, April 1st, 2024. And they were talking about whether to cut my foot off or not. And I'm like, I gotta make a change. This is not good. Walking
No, not
around is
good at
really,
all.
yeah, it's not good. And yeah. So anyways, I have one message. If I can like preach a little sermon here, man, if you're not healthy, get healthy because there's consequences to it. There's consequences. In fact, hey, Chris, let's engage some viewers right now. I mean, what do you guys think about all this? We've been chit chatting about a bunch of stuff, and what do you guys think? What do you think about being healthy? What do you think about overweight people? What do you think about eating better quality
Yeah, go
food?
ahead and fat shame us. Yeah.
Yeah, fat shame us. I mean, I'm still really fat. I'm still considered obese. Now I guarantee you, in a year from now, I'm not going to be. Right? I'm already changing. I'm going to get a little leaner. Got to get all this belly gone.
That's the other thing that it never occurred to me, but I mean, anyone who's fit probably this is just inherent in their understanding. The more muscle you have, the more calories you burn. Of course, I mean that's a duh, of course, but you add muscle and you're actually increasing the ability for your body to burn off the calories. It
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. Muscle protects you from all sorts of bad stuff. And especially as you get older, even forget about the calories and stuff. Just think about the potential for falling because you lose your fast twitch muscle fibers. Going downhill is the dangerous stuff. I mean, falls when you get older is just can be devastating. Man, you have
I
one
got
bad fall,
I got a
and
dynamometer to check my
oh,
hand my
that's
hand grip
interesting.
strength. And honestly, yeah, I'm just barely normal, so I need to work on that.
Yeah, and that's funny. Peter Attia talks about that. He talks about VO2 max and grip strength
Yeah.
because he goes, those are two numbers that just represent the sum of everything. There's nothing unique about that, but he's like, that represents everything else what you've been
Well,
doing,
the Aura Ring also does a VO2 max test as well.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
so I'll about once every month or so I'll run it to see. You just do a quick 6 minute walk, and it
Oh,
tries to gauge it. I don't know how accurate it is, but it's measuring something. So
it's something. It's probably better than nothing. If nothing else, I like the thing like, in fact, I lost my, I think I'm going to buy another one. It's like, I think I lost my Aura Ring. I can't find it. It drives me
if
crazy.
you do, let me know. I think I've got a link that you can use. Also, I met a guy this week. I went to a bourbon mixer to
Oh,
meet
nice. There
other
you go.
people, and this guy had, yeah, I said, is that an Aura Ring? He goes, no, I lost my Aura Ring. I bought this one. And it was another company. And he goes, this one does blood pressure. And I'm like, how the heck does it do blood pressure? I don't get it. But cool. So there might be other ones out there that do stuff that you might
We
want to
can
look
probably
into.
do some research because I know I'm paying the $6 a month for the Aura Ring thing for months and not using it. So
Oh, I'm
maybe I'll.
grandfathered in. I bought before they did
Oh,
that.
nice. Okay, nice. Yeah, but I should probably do a little research and just see if the Aura ring is still sort of the ring to get, or if there's other options or
Yeah,
something.
the one I saw looked like an Aura ring that this guy had. XY
Yeah.
something. I forgot. It was a bunch of letters. So,
I don't know.
but I'm really obsessed with, you know, we get the Aura ring, we get our glucose meters, we get our watches. You get sensors on the bed. You get a gut biome, test to figure out your biome. You've got your family history. You've got your genetic history. You've got all this stuff. I just think there's so much data available on you now that if we were to aggregate it and put it into an app, we could figure out ways to
Oh yeah, yeah,
give you up to the minute medical
yeah.
recommendations.
Well, the
And
cool thing
then
for me is it gamifies it, right? So you're like, oh, my sleep's not that great, so I need to work on
gamifies
that.
it, and I think for you and I, and for those who like playing with data and numbers, gamifying it's fine. But I think we
Yeah.
also need an ability to just tell a story or to talk to people, communicate with them. But I think when we get to that point, we're going to need things like insulin measurements and testosterone and estrogen and cortisol and all those things. And I think those are coming. So when we
Oh,
get
that'd be.
all of that stuff, imagine having it just you open up the app and it's a little chat GPT or whatever AI version and you name it, doc whatever or something, right? And it'll tell you, hey, your cortisol is really high today. This is going on. That's going on. Your gut bio, given
Yeah.
your family history, you really should just go take it easy today.
Yeah, have you seen the movies? They do that in the movies. It's like on astronauts or whatever. I mean, in future ones, they're like, oh, your blood pressure's a little up, or you're eating too much. We're going to cut your calories back by 200 a
I
day or
like the one
something.
in The Fifth Element where he had a limited number of cigarettes every day, and it would only. And the thing was, the cigarette was this much filter and this much cigarette. It was something
Yeah,
crazy like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. That's kind of cool. Maybe I don't know how cool it is, but certainly insurance companies would love that because now your rates are going to change based upon your data, how healthy you are. Which maybe makes sense, right? I mean, maybe people going on airplanes, maybe they should charge by the pound. I don't know.
Why not?
Well, why
Your,
not?
your
Because
your
I have to pay
your luggage
more.
is limited in size. Why can't the people be?
Boy, oh boy, yeah, that's a you're getting some sensitive territory now.
You know what? As soon as it becomes socially acceptable, they'll do it because they can make more money off it.
I mean, technically, it is right? Because you know that's
You're
how they
using
ship
more gas.
packages by
You're using
weight,
more
right?
fuel.
More
Mhm.
fuel, yeah, not a lot, but it's a little bit more. That's there's no doubt. All
Um.
right, Chris, what
Well,
else
again,
are we going to talk about? What's
so
that?
so the whole thing when I did that whole vaccine conversation with ChatGPT, I was driving to Trader Joe's.
Oh yeah, the bag.
Yeah.
That's right. You're
So I'll
obsessed
show you.
about
I
the.
want to show you. So this is a bag that I bought last year for my daughter. A
Okay,
Trader Joe's bag. She put a zipper on it.
okay.
Where is it? Zipper on it right there. So she's got a zipper, and she put a strap on it. So she turned it into a regular bag. It's a little
Oh,
tote bag.
nice. Okay.
Right? These go for $2.99 if you can get them, and
Wait,
they're on
two. No,
eBay.
wait. Hang on. Two. What? $2.99.
$2.99. And if
Okay.
you and if you can get a hold of them, and then later in the day they'll be on eBay for 20, 50, $100.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Okay. So they came out with new colors this week, and I waited in line and got them for my family. There's the purple one with pink lettering,
Okay.
and the blue one, and the pink one, and the teal one. Right?
And that's pretty good for $3. I mean, that's not
Oh, I
bad.
mean they're great, but for some crazy reason, 2 years ago, they came out and they took off and they got popular. And
Okay. Yeah.
in some countries, like in Japan, Trader Joe's is almost a brand name. So
Oh.
giving someone a Trader Joe's branded bag is kind of cool in Japan because it's
Okay.
like having a brand, right? And then of course the resale market online. Like I told you, these you buy for $3 and you sell it for $50. I mean that's a huge markup. But it's stupid. It's just it's a grocery store tote bag, you know. And I'm sitting there in line, sitting next to some other woman who's waiting in line. It gave me a chance to write out that whole Black Lives Matter
Got
thought
you.
in my head, but I was looking at her. I go, "This is stupid. Why are we sitting here waiting in this stupid line?" And not only that, I did it 3 times this week, so I got 12 of these bags. So my wife
Well,
now has plenty of gifts to give to her friends in Japan.
this is what it tells me. You got way too much way too much time on your hands, man. If you're like standing in line to get those little bags,
Well, I got there at 7:30, 7:15, and I sit around and get them.
dude, you need to get a life. Come on, man. Come on. What are you doing with the bag thing? What? Tell me what's going on in your head with the bag thing.
I think it's stupid, but like again, I will sit and bring my notebook or do whatever, and make
Okay,
use of the time.
at least you're like, what do you call it? Parallel processing stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
everyone else is standing there on their phones, and I'm sitting there. I bring my ocarina and I'll play it. I'll do other. I'll sit there. I did my squats one day. I just sat there and did all my squats on in the morning.
So what is the obsession with his bag? What is like?
Oh, it's not just this one. They have grocery bags. I mean, they have lunch bags. They have all these things. And one of the things Trader Joe's has always had is a kind of an artsy aspect to it. They use many of the stores have their own in art artist in the store that will do like the chalkboards and stuff with pictures and the like. They've got their catalog every month that has a bunch of hand drawn pictures. So there's an artsy element to it that's part of their character. But
So
because of that, they have all these things that they take their grocery bags and they don't make just grocery bags. They make grocery bags with designs on them, that sort of thing.
so do you want the bag just because of the function of the bag? Or are you trying to associate with the brand because you
I got
like
nothing
it?
to do with it. My wife wanted them, and I went and got them. What do you mean?
Oh no, that's a very okay. You're doing it for your wife. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Uh, you
That
know,
makes
I
sense.
told her I mean, the thing is, I could sell one of these and make up the cost of all of them, right?
Okay,
I mean, it's
okay,
got a pocket and stuff.
okay. So you're doing this for your wife. Okay, now that makes sense to me.
Oh,
That
it has
now's
yeah,
clicking.
yeah. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, they're just too small, and they're not to offend anyone, they're too girly for me to use.
Yeah, I know. I thought they are a little feminine looking, but yeah. Okay, okay. So that makes sense. So your daughter and your wife like them. So you're doing something nice for your family then. Nice.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
I
like I
love it.
said, they're going back to Japan this year, so when they go back, they'll take them back as gifts to other people, and
Okay,
they're
okay.
they're well valued by people who receive them because they know the name. They've probably never been to a Trader Joe's in their life, but they know what it is. So
So you're doing it for like kind of social status? Are you doing it for social status, or are you doing it just because you actually care about people?
I'm doing it so my wife gets her social status out of it.
Okay, 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 okay. And then so you do something nice for your wife. She's more likely to do something nice for you then, right?
Well, she takes care of my daughter and takes her to school and does all those things, so I don't have to worry about that.
Cool. Okay, that makes sense. That at least makes sense to me. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't do that, but it does make sense. Yeah. That's good. I thought you were kind of like losing your mind there for a minute or something.
No, there's a lot of trendy stuff that I don't agree with, but I don't buy into, but I will participate in. But
Okay,
but
okay.
so, I mean, but it is interesting to me how they did not Trader Joe's did not market this as being a cool trendy thing. Social media took it and made it what it is. And then what happens is now you got to find out when is it going to be arriving? When is it going to go on sale? When are the drops going to happen? And those are on social media. And then you see people posting and everyone go, "Oh my gosh, I want that. It's so cute." Blah blah blah. I mean, it's not driven by the company at all. It's driven totally by social media.
Yeah, this is a brand. This is we're talking about a brand in this case.
It's a
People love
brand
the
it's
brand.
an organic brand where the interest is not in what their core product is. The interest is in this little accessory they make.
Yeah. Man, we got to talk about brand development or something because this is a big deal. Brands,
Well, and that's why everything nowadays is about what's your personal brand. I mean, this is something 20 years ago. I mean, what the hell's a personal brand? Now
Yeah,
it's what's your
brand.
personal brand? What do you stand for? What do you all these? And I'm like, huh?
That's interesting. So then let's define brand. How do you define brand?
Brand is the image you build, build around a particular entity organization.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna take a stab at defining it too because I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I'm gonna think about a brand is a trust. Like so, a brand creates trust in somebody
Okay.
else, and I think trust is the foundation of everything. And so I think
I
that's what we're doing here, right? We're having to create a brand about hands-on logos. And it's
yeah.
funny when I talk to people, I don't talk to him about us. I talk to him about the hands-on logos brand, which is
Hmm.
interesting.
Yes, I do too.
Like it's abstracting it from us, you know?
And I think it is because I think this is one of our alter egos, personalities, whatever you want to say, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's intrinsic and we value it within our own personality, but I think this is our outlet for this.
Yeah, it's the outlet, but I don't change for this. I mean, if somebody were to talk to me, this I'd talk exactly the same
Yeah,
way,
but
you know?
the idea is we try to keep this more pure to that. We, even though we talk about politics, we talk about other things, and our opinion comes through. We're trying to still filter through a lens of thought and reason.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
I don't sit here and make music on this channel,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Right, right. Because people get used to it. Because if and we do have fans, which is crazy. It's like I love because Gregory Lopez. I don't know if he still watches them or not, but he said he can't wait for the episodes to drop on Sundays, and I'm like, man, my first thought was you need to get a life, dude. Right? You seriously. There's about a million things better to do than watch us, you know. But maybe
Uh,
not.
we,
Maybe he gets some kind of enjoyment out of it, you
we got
know.
a comment in the last couple of days. Someone says, "I don't know how you got into my feed, why YouTube put you in my feed, but the stuff you talk about was the stuff I was just talking about yesterday." So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's why probably why you're in your. That's why we're in your feed. Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
interesting. So because I think we should wrap this up because I'd like to go do some other stuff actually, but I'd
Okay.
like to make a request of you at some point. I would like you with your ukulele to sing a little commercial that we could
Okay.
start dropping in the middle of things.
All right. You
Maybe
want
you
me to
could
make the
think
thing
about
up
it.
entirely?
What's that?
You want me to create the whole thing entirely, or what do you want to talk about?
Well, I want you to just a commercial would be, and I'll make one too. I'm not sure what it's going to be. In fact, maybe it'd be fun just to like make it right now. At least take a stab at it. Something you're singing a song because what do we want people to do? We want to engage with people because ultimately, when people make comments, it's going to drive us to give people more of what they want, and it's going to help us think through things. So it's helpful to us personally. At least to me, it's personal. Another thing, it definitely helps the channel because as YouTube sees more and more interaction with people, they're going to start sharing this with more and more people. So you, as a viewer, actually get to be a part of spreading this message around. If you agree with the message, if you don't, then heck, don't do it, right? But if you like this, if you think the world would be a little better place with a little more critical thinking, then yeah, let's do a journey together. And I would think at least for the next while, Chris. I mean, I would love to have some really great guests on the show. I think it's more fun with guests, you know.
Hmm.
And
I think
so,
so.
if you want to be a guest, man, come on the show. As long as you're absolutely entertaining, right? I mean, if you're just a bump on the log, get
Well,
off, right? We don't want you. But if you're fun and
but
can actually
what
think
we
through stuff,
consider entertaining is thought provoking.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Thought
mean,
provoking for me personally.
it's not like you're a contortionist. Come on and be a contortionist. I mean,
Hey, if you
you know,
want to come on and show us contortionists for 5 minutes, I'm fine with that. You know, if there's any
yeah, for
contortionists.
5 minutes, but then after that, we want the thought provoking conversation.
Yeah, we want the thought for because my first thought is how do you do that? How do you get your body to bend
Okay,
like that?
you were asking for a list of skills to give this guy though. That you were
Yeah,
talking to,
right.
right? So I wrote these three things down, and also I think they're directly related to the channel, right?
Yeah.
Problem solving,
Yes.
critical thinking,
Yes.
storytelling.
I like the storytelling. Yeah. I'd like to add on to that. Maybe before the storytelling is just to analytically explain the problem. Maybe without stories, but if you could mix it in the story, I think that's even better. Because the storytelling is a wrapper around the thought process. It's a sugar around the medicine, right?
The storytelling, the storytelling is. I'm just thinking all the things that require storytelling. You need to understand your audience well enough
Yeah.
to know how to present information to them and give them
Yes.
enough information to drive the outcome you're looking for. Right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's a level of awareness there that it's not just about telling a good story. What does it mean to tell a good story? I think that's what you're talking about, right? And you even talking the analytical thinking. To me, critical thinking and problem solving are all kind of these skills are interrelated. And the only thing that storytelling does is it helps you build it helps you obtain the resources to do it by getting people's buy-in.
Yeah,
You
because
don't need to
ultimately,
storytell if you don't need if you don't need help from other people. You don't need to storytelling, right? You can
yeah,
just have
because my
basic,
thought
boring
is,
communication.
tell me a good story. First of all, I want to be entertained, like 90%. But man, if I can come away with like a new skill or a new thought or learning something, that's like awesome. If you could mix those two things together, that's powerful skill.
I'm no, I'm thinking you're talking about what this guy needs in the way of skills to work on, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, storytelling is the skill that will get him to get the buy-in from others when he needs it, right?
Yeah, yeah. As long as it wraps around the critical thinking. As long as there's something of value
I
there.
would I would almost say the critical thinking and the problem solving in that scenario are less important because if you tell a good story, you can get whatever you want.
Yeah, but man, I'd like to combine them together, Chris. If,
Now,
if you
to
could
do
combine them.
something meaningful that you value, that you think is going to change the world or have an impact on the world, then the critical thinking is important because you need to understand the pieces of what you're trying to do and how they fit together. And then that's where you need to have problem definition, all that kind of thing you're talking about. And
Yeah.
then the problem solving is all the skills of not just analysis and you know uh, not just analysis and kind of figuring out an individual solution, but also figuring out how, who, what, right? So it's like I need a process by which I can do blank. Well, maybe there's an IT tool to do that. Okay, how do I find the person who knows where the IT tool is? How do I find the IT tool? How do I find the person to program the IT tool? How do I find the people to run the process? All of those things. That is all to me problem solving. And then the storytelling, which to me is a very specific type of communication, is to get their buy-in.
Yeah. 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 I think I want to work on that a little bit. I think you're going in the right direction, but there's still,
So,
it
what
feels
about
like there's a
visionary?
little something that needs to be tweaked there.
What about vision?
Well, I think vision is cool. That's the current Toastmaster thing I'm in, visionary communication.
So, but
Um,
to me, vision is the level of leadership that we all want from others, right? There's different levels of types of leadership, but I think vision is the one that we all think of the big leader as having. We all think of like an Elon Musk as having a vision, right, to back up the human race on another planet. What
yeah.
is the vision? And the better you can articulate, the better you can storytell your vision, the much better buy-in you'll have from the people you're trying to get.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I think, so I view it as like, if you could put a picture in somebody else's head, that is a great skill, right? And
Well,
have them
oh,
believe it. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
because you know what it does? Giving someone an individual picture, a vision in their head, is the fastest way to alignment.
Yeah, and alignment's critical. I think in terms of rowing a boat, you could have six people in there all doing their own thing. You're probably not going to go pretty much anyway. But I watched this one movie on the rowing team. Man, these guys were perfectly in sync. And it was like, it's like an art form. It's beautiful almost. You're like, oh, it's
Did you hear
leaders.
that commentary, the story about the Japanese car company and the American car company?
No.
Right. In the Japanese car company, there's 8 people in a canoe or in a boat or a rowboat, and they're all rowing, and they got one guy giving them directions. In the
Yeah.
American car company's boat, you've got one rower and 8 guys giving them directions.
Yeah. Right. 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 Yeah. Exactly.
Right. I
What a
mean,
difference.
we are individuals as a nation, and we also think that as an individual, what we think is as important as anyone else. But in a I guess in an organization, your value is only based upon what
Yeah.
you know on your skill set, your knowledge, and what you can impact. Right. So
Yeah.
slowing down and mucking up the process with your opinion happens in so many places. You got to know when to say, okay, it's that person's job to make the decision or the like.
Yeah.
They need to know. They need to know when to ask you, but you need to know when to defer to them and not to think it. Oh, I'm a blank, so my opinion's important. Because then,
Yeah.
even if I don't agree with your vision, if I agree that you're in charge, then I will follow your vision, which gives us a
Well,
much more likely chance of success than if
to
I'm
me, that's
against
called consensus. Yeah, it's like, okay, I may not agree with it, but um, but I'm going to do it because I think it's
That's
it's
an
the
interesting
best
thing.
it's the best option.
I used to define consensus as we all have to be in agreement, and that's not what you're saying.
No, 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 no. We don't have to be in agreement, actually. Yeah. Next on the next podcast, I'll tell you a story. I went to this men's leadership thing for 10 days. And oh my God, it was like several hours of consensus building. It was the most frustrating thing, but I finally got it
Consensus
after like
building
8 hours.
is really frustrating, which is why I find using authority is often the way to go. But if you use authority, you have to have a leader that people want to follow, which to me
Yeah.
is the visionary leader is much more likely to be followed than the managerial guy because he's not really the leader in my mind. But anyway,
Yeah. So I don't know if this is going to apply at all or not, but I want to talk about it anyways. So I was watching, I think, what was I watching? I was watching the Bob Dylan movie and it was
hmm
interesting. And there was a part in there, the guy was leading a whole audience and he said, okay, you sing this part, and you sing this part, and you sing that part, and everything like that. And it's like he put everything together. And so everybody in that room, like 100 people, they were making music together. And it's almost like there was this, I want to say like a religious experience happening, or there was a an exalted experience because everybody was contributing and everybody was in perfect harmony, and literally it was like a beautiful thing to watch it, you know. And I'll bet it's even more beautiful to be part of it. But even
there's
watching it
a
is amazing.
there's a British guy who's like a what do you call it, a musical savant, genius, whatever it is, and I think his name was Jacob Collier, I think is his name, a relatively young guy. And there's a video of him, and I guess he does this all around the world. He goes in front of the symphony, and he has the symphony say, "Okay, you play this note, you play this note, you play this beat, you do this thing," and he puts together a song,
Yeah.
just kind of on the fly, and has them play and gives them direction. I've seen him do it with the audience too. Audience, you sing this, you sing this, you sing this, and he has different parts
Yeah.
of the audience sing, and then he says, "Okay, go up, go down," and he draws it out, and it's freaking amazing what you can do when people are
It's
all
amazing.
taking direction from one person.
Yeah, because each part is super simple, but it's like when you put it all together and combine it, you get this incredible like something. It's like 1 + 1 = 5 sort of thing,
So,
you know?
so, and this is the problem with systems, right? When we complain about the government being inefficient and ineffective, every piece is simple. Everything an individual does in the government is relatively simple. What makes it work is someone has oversight and watches it and pieces it together and makes sure it moves and has authority and responsibility and accountability to make things happen.
Yeah,
The problem
yeah,
is that accountability has disappeared. The people aren't there. No one's getting blamed when things don't happen. No one's being held accountable. And because
yeah,
of that, each piece that someone does suddenly has no value anymore because it's not fitting together and making the
yeah,
big thing happen, right? When you
yeah.
have a really complex process, you break it down into small pieces so individuals can do it. But in the
And
process, if you need that one mastermind at the top to keep it going.
yeah, yeah, right, exactly. And that's typically the CEO, right? Typically.
Yeah, one of your C-level officers or whatever is the one whose job it is, right? So maybe the operations guy does operations and someone else does something else. But the
Yeah,
idea being that there's someone who's accountable for it. He doesn't know every cog and how it operates. He understands how the system operates. And then he's got people underneath him, or like the mechanics who understand the individual cogs and can fix the
yeah,
cogs. And then they have specialists like HR who can come in and replace cogs of people, and IT to replace systems and cogs, those kinds of cogs. I think the way it works is people forget that it is a complex system that relies on everything to work together. And if
yes.
something is wrong or inefficient, the whole system is impacted, right?
Impacted, yes. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
If your workforce is sick and can't come into work, you're not making any cars.
Yeah,
If
right.
your factory machines are down or working slowly, you're not making any cars. If the power
Yes.
is out, you're not making any cars. If payroll
Yes.
isn't working, you're not making any cars,
Yeah, right,
right?
right.
I mean, if there's a tornado, you're not making any. All these things are required to work together, and that means everything has a value. I'm not going to say it's equally valuable, but everything has a value.
No,
We
everything's
did,
important. Yes, yes, everything's important. Because if you weren't important in this putting this whole thing together, then you wouldn't be there, right? There,
yep,
there's no wasted stuff. And you know, this is interesting. Like for the janitor, right? He thinks maybe my job's not that important. I'm like, I'm telling you, it's important, right? I mean, it may not be from a market. You may not like be paid as much as like a high level engineer because your skill's not as difficult to do, but it's
yep.
still really important, right?
Well, what I always thought was interesting is that Netflix had this idea that they always hire high end people,
Yeah,
right? In a small organization, you hire really capable people and you kind of let them run amok
yeah,
because
right, right.
they're all aligned in their thinking. They're all working as a team. When the tribe gets big enough, you get different levels of people, and you can't rely on them all being equally highly competent. So you start to
Yes.
build processes for them to follow. As the processes get more and more advanced, you're able to hire less and less competent people because the process is giving them guidance,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Right.
But Netflix had, for a long time, would always hire top superstars in essence, right?
Really
But they
smart
would
people.
also reevaluate jobs. So if you were an HTML programmer, 30 years ago, and you were great at making websites, you made a lot of money. But
Yeah.
as that skill set became kind of outdated because everyone can do every
Because
system
it's
can do
easy to do.
HTML
Yeah.
on its
Right.
own now, that job value went down and the pricing went down, right?
Yeah. Right. Right.
And they do that on a regular basis for all their jobs. They figure out
Yeah.
what's going up and what's going down, and they pay, I think, fair market value and above. But they also are very aware when, okay, that's not a popular, or it's not an important skill anymore. Or that's, we got too many people out there who do that skill, right? Then market value
Yeah.
goes down.
Yeah. I love that approach because everything is critically important. It's just that some skills are harder and take longer to master than other ones, you know?
Yeah, the tires on your car are very important. You're not going to
Critically
pay
important.
50 grand for your tires.
Right. Well, maybe sometimes people do. It depends on what kind of car and what,
But
right?
but but the idea being, they're extremely important, and you have to have them, and you will pay for them.
Must have them. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're going to pay the same amount as you're going to pay for the engine,
Right. Right. Exactly.
because they're
Right.
not the same thing.
Not. It's not the
Um,
same thing because of the difficulty.
so
Yes.
we didn't get to talk about tariffs, proof of citizenship voting, or probationary federal workers being fired a second time. Those are on my list.
Well, there's always next week, Chris.
Yes. And when I talk about those things, it's not about I have an opinion one way or the other. It's I'm interested in how the government or the opposition or whoever's thinking about these things, and I'm also thinking of a thought exercise of if I wanted to do this, if I wanted to back this viewpoint, what would
Yeah.
have to be true for me to back this viewpoint,
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes
right?
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So because I honestly I think everyone is right and everyone is wrong. It all depends on where your mind is, what your mindset is, what
Yeah.
you're
And it
thinking.
depends on your role, right? It depends on what you're trying to solve. And so I would like to put some nuance in what you just said. I think there's times when everybody's right, and then there's times when that exact same view it's instead of saying right and wrong, like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right?
Yeah, but I'm resisting that because in my mind, if I'm in a world where this scenario is right, unless I changed my definition of that world, my scenario is still right. You can come up with facts from outside, you can come up with evidence, you can come up with whatever. If my worldview stays the same, if my mindset stays the same, then I'm still right in my mind.
As long as you're, well, you have to define right. I mean, I think I'm gonna agree with you. If you
Right
mean by
is
right,
I guess right is a mindset. There is no absolute objective right. It's everything subjective. All right is subjective.
yeah, it's subjective. It depends on how well that techniques works in this given scenario, right? Some techniques work better in certain things than other things.
But if I don't care about your techniques and I'm like, okay, these are the three things I believe this is my world that and that's it, then I've actually created a world mindset where I'm right.
Okay, yeah,
I
you can
think,
definitely be.
and I think
You can be right.
that's the
You may
problem
not be
though
as.
with that's the problem when we get into arguments of people that are too far left or too far right or too far whatever, or you're really crazy conspiracy theorists and the like. They build a mindset with the facts that they have or they want to have, and they don't change it. So they're never wrong because they've built up this idea based upon that information.
I guess. I mean, then I would rather use the word effective. How effective is that technique given this scenario, right?
Why? Why do you need why do you need to change it? What's your goal in changing the definition?
Well, because I don't know what right means, right? I don't even know. I don't even know what that means, right? I mean, you think you're right. Okay, if that's your argument, fine. Okay, you're right. But
Yeah, you're right. That's it. That's the end of it.
I
Are
mean, if
you
that's the end of it, it's like okay, whatever.
you're expecting us to come to consensus? Are you expecting us to change their mind? It sounds to me like you're saying because you know that the conditions are different, that the constraints are different, that the facts are different, that they're wrong because you have a different mindset, right?
Well, then I guess there's got to be some way to measure. I mean, what I want then, because that makes me feel uncomfortable. Okay, I guess whatever, whatever. If you want to do that, fine. But it's like I want to somehow be able to quantify this as how good this is for a particular case,
But
right?
I don't want to quantify it. I've got my worldview. I don't need quantification.
Okay, fine, fine, fine. Okay, then I'm
So
bored. I don't. I want
what I'm getting at is
to.
your desire to quantify it and turn it into an analytical engineering problem is part of your bias already.
Okay, well that's fine. But then I'm bored of this conversation. Let's talk about something else. It's like, okay, you're right. Let's move on. It's like, so
So
what?
then the question is, what do you do after that? When is your goal to change their mind? Is your goal to get them to agree to you? What is your goal? Because then you need to figure out what am I going to do. So
Well,
I
my
think there,
goal is, I just want to be entertained. I'm bored right now talking about this. So, like, if you want to say that, fine. Okay, whatever. Fine, great. I'm gonna go somewhere else, right? I'm gonna get my toys and go home.
no, I don't. My thought is that if we can put ourselves in the mindset of someone who's got a simplistic view and they think they're right, that puts you in a situation to address that.
I suppose. I mean, a lot of times I don't need to address it. It's like, fine, you believe whatever you want to believe. I don't really care, right? Because I want to use my limited amount of energy to do something that's going to benefit me or somebody else I care about. I don't really care about changing your mind. It's just not
So
important
if
to
you
me.
go and you find 1,000 people who've got this simple mindset and you can convince them that they need to do something to change and they need to pay $5 to you to do it,
So
isn't
five,
that
so
worth?
that's 5 grand. Okay, so then I'll
You
put a
got
certain amount of work in to solve a 5 grand problem, right?
yep.
But the
So I
problem
think
is,
that
I doubt if I'd take that though, because I don't even know if I could change their mind because it's so tightly thing, and it's not worth it to me. It's not worth the effort, right?
uh-huh. To
So
me,
okay,
this is just your marketing problem. Someone has got a mindset. You got to you got to change their world. You got to change their mindset. You got to change their understanding of the world.
I don't have to do that. It's like
You
only
don't
if it's
have to, but we've talked about marketing and using it to control people, basically, right?
well, yeah, yeah. But what do I get out of the deal actually? So I'm always looking at how much work is it and how much I get paid, right? How much money am I going to make for this? And there's some things that I just paid more for doing than other things, and I'm going to pick the higher paid things.
Yeah, I don't think you're arguing something different than I am. What I'm saying is the idea here is once we understand that everyone is right in their minds and they've actually put in there is a logical flow of information or ideas or thoughts, maybe simple because they don't know a lot, but that is how they've backed their opinion on
No,
things,
I get your argument. It's
right?
like I get it. Yeah, you think you're right, whatever. Not you, but some other group of people. It's like, okay, whatever,
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
I don't care if I don't have the incentive to change your mind. I don't really care what you believe.
but you will argue
Fine.
they're wrong.
I think they might be wrong, but I wouldn't even argue it because I'm like, what's the point? What do I gain out of it? It's like
Because this is
I get frustrated.
anybody you disagree with is in this mind. I'm saying everybody who has an opinion thinks they're right because they are in their mind.
Okay, fine. Okay, right,
Right.
exactly.
So to change that for whatever outcome you want to get them to buy something, you want to get them to change their mind, you want to get them to hire you, whatever. For any reason at all, then the whole idea here is to change their worldview, to change their mindset, such that they accept changes to what they believe,
Well,
changes to that.
I would only do that depending on what I gain out of it, depending on how much I gain
Yeah.
by changing your mind. But a lot of things, it's like, okay, so what? Like, okay, whatever.
But
Yeah,
you're saying
okay.
you would never do it.
No, I'm not saying I would never do it. I'm just
So then I'm
saying.
saying, if you do it, how do you do it? That's what I'm saying. How do you do it?
So basically, what you're doing it is so the scenario is you're putting a gun to my head and you're saying you must change that person's mind. Is that the scenario?
Yeah, there's a doctor who thinks that you're going to die from diabetes and isn't going to talk to you and give you the medicine you need.
So then in that case, I'm going to go find another doctor, right?
Okay,
But
he feels
if
the same
you,
way because
what's that?
he feels the same way because that's the medical industry's viewpoint.
Okay, so then, but see, but see, I don't want to play the game because you're just running a hypothetical scenario that I don't believe actually exists, right?
So yeah, so
So,
the premise of my argument is that no one is illogical in their minds. They're illogical in our mind because we don't see the world they do. In their own mind, they're logical. So the whole argument that I'm making, or the whole point I'm making, is in order to have a conversation with that someone that actually progresses somewhere, you need to change their mindset. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe. I mean, yeah. I mean, I suppose. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
So yeah.
otherwise, how do you get the outcome you want? Otherwise,
Well, I mean, I guess I don't understand the point. It's like I agree with your premise that everybody thinks they're right, but not everybody does, though. Other people think I could be wrong. Like I think a lot of things I'm not really certain about this issue.
and
I think it's this way, but I'm pretty easily swayed. Other people are like,
that
no way,
that's a
this is
level of
it.
critical thinking that is a level deeper. The idea that I have is that when you hear something that sounds dumb and stupid to you, when you hear
Yeah.
someone say something dumb and stupid, I don't think their thinking is dumb and stupid. I think their thinking is limited and constrained by what they know, by by the rules they're trying to
Oh,
follow.
probably so. Yeah. I don't think
Right?
I'm going to give you
And so
100%, but I think,
the whole idea of moving that along in a way where you can get that person to think more critically, you're going to have to change those assumptions, change those constraints, change the facts, right? And if someone is totally tone deaf to that and won't even hear you talk about it, right? They're far left, far right, for whatever, then you're going to have a much harder time because they're stuck in that, right?
well, it may not even be a harder time. It may be impossible, right?
Well, yeah. So to me, nothing's 100%. So it's going to be a harder time.
So in that kind I guess I don't know what your point is exactly. I agree with your premise, fine,
So my
but then
point
are you
is,
forcing me that I have to change?
as an exercise, I mean, we're trying to get people to think critically. What do we need to do to get them to think critically? That's what I'm saying. People,
Yeah.
people who people who disagree with what we say, we want them to think more critically. How do we do that? That's what I'm getting at, and I'm trying to
Okay. Now
explain what
that
it is.
that's better. That I can
because
I can take
because they're
that
not thinking
counterpoint.
in your mind. They're not thinking critically. In my mind, they're not thinking critically. In their mind, they're probably thinking critically. They think they're thinking critically.
It
How
could
do
be. I
you?
mean, well, for okay, first, okay, this is okay. Now I think what you're saying is actually starting to make a little bit of sense, right? Um, in that particular case, I would think, how important is it for me to change their mind, right? And if I think it's important, if I get something out of that, depending on how much I get, that depends on how much work I'm going to put into it, right?
Yeah,
So how
I don't
hard am I
care
going
how
to do
much work you put into it. I'm saying, how do you do it? You
it?
can
The
make a
approach.
decision whether it's worth the effort separately from that. Am I going to spend the time and money to change this person's mind is not the question. How do I change this person's mind is the question.
So you're putting constraint on me, saying you have a gun to my head that I must attempt to change
I
their
don't know
mind.
why you keep going to the gun into your head. This is a thought experiment of saying when someone says that they say when someone believes something that seems dumb to us, that they actually believe they're being logical. And
Oh,
so
okay.
how do you fix that?
So your assumption is I don't like your assumption actually,
Okay.
because your assumption is the fact that I have to try to change their mind. I'm like, I don't have to change their mind.
Okay, then
That's
so
why
why
I
are we
put the
having a
premise.
channel?
What's that?
What's the point of the channel then if we don't want people to think more? My whole thing is how do we get people to think more the way we want them to think?
Well, first of all,
Things that we call critical
we're not going
thinking,
to get everybody to do that, right?
but things we call critical thinking, things that we call problem solving, right? We've got our ideas of what that is. I'm saying I don't think the average person thinks of themselves as being illogical and unreasonable. They actually think they're being logical and reasonable. They just don't have
Some
enough.
of us are crazy. I hear some people say I think I'm totally crazy actually about this belief.
Actually, the people who acknowledge that they're crazy to me are more than likely more self-aware and probably recognize different viewpoints.
Very could be
It, it's
actually.
it's people who don't do that that actually are the ones that we need to worry about.
So then here's I think your constraints are too tight, right? And your constraints frustrate me. So if you're saying I've got a large population that I want to attempt to modify their thinking, right? I'm going to use some general strategies, and then there's going to be some people that are going to respond, and some people are not going to respond. The people that move towards me, I'll spend more time with them, and the people that move away, I'll spend less time with them.
Yeah, it's not quite what I'm getting at. No, I'm getting at the idea that if our goal is to get people to think more critically, to put more thought into things, and they actually think they're thinking critically. I think they think they've thought this through. They think they understand the situation. how do you get someone to recognize there's facts they don't know, there's information they don't know,
Well,
there's
here's the
things they
thing.
haven't
Okay,
talked to?
here's the logical error you're making, right? Let me tell you. So basically, you're saying I want an answer, and I gave you an answer, and you didn't like the answer, and you're saying no, you keep asking me the question because you want the answer you want, and I'm telling you that's my answer.
Your premise is that your answer is that we're going to work with the people, and then the ones who come towards us, we're going to put more effort into them.
Yes, of course, right, exactly, yeah, correct. Like the ones that leave comments or have questions or something, or like, and for some comments we're going to ignore, right? Because
Yeah.
I think they're dumb comments.
And my question is the actual how do we get the person who understands the facts at the level they understand it to open up to new facts, to ask the question of themselves, am I missing anything here?
So you want a
How do we get to,
generalized approach, right? Is
yes,
that what you're asking? So you're
yes.
saying you want me to give a generalized approach to attempt to move people's thinking from here to there.
I don't expect you to have an answer today, but what I'm saying is that to me seems to be uh, a useful goal for us to have is to take how to understand that people are constrained in the way they think, and anyone can think more critically. Anyone can be more self-aware. Anyone can be more of whatever. And how do we ask the questions, give the lessons, argue with people in a way that makes their mind work out a different understanding of the world than what they had?
Well, I can give you a generalized approach that I think would work. I don't know how effective it is. It's probably one of the more effective techniques. Is that first of all, you agree with them. It's like, look, I can totally see how you would have that viewpoint because I used to have the same viewpoint. And then here's some additional information that I got that you may not have. And let me share that information with you. And that's going to steer some people. So some people are going to move with that, right? And some are not. I don't know how many, right? But certainly
So,
the ones that move, I'm like, okay, these are closer to my tribe. These are my people, right?
so the underlying
But
thought you have there, first you're going to agree with them. To me, goes to that thought experiment I was doing. Is if I put my mindset of the person, how can I reasonably believe what they believe? What would it take in my mindset to believe what they believe? And so what I'm saying is,
yeah,
once I understand that, then I can say, oh, I agree with you,
yeah.
and then doing what you said. But let's add these other pieces of information to that and see whether it still my beliefs still fit the same way.
Yeah, I mean that's a generalized approach. I mean that's a Stephen Covey thing. Seek first to understand, right? Let me just understand. Why do you think that way? And then be understood. Yeah, I mean I think that's probably one of the best just first approaches I
So
would
if you
use.
have two people arguing,
Yeah,
and let's say that it's two family members arguing politics, because that happens a fair amount,
yeah,
right?
right.
And you want to your goal is to not estrange the family, then someone needs to be able to do that.
Yeah, and in that particular case, so when it comes to politics or deeply held beliefs, my chance of changing their mind on stuff is next to impossible is the way I view it, right? Because people are just like, if you look at liberals and Republicans, they just fundamentally see the world in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
They just see it differently.
Do they understand how each other sees the world? Is my question.
I don't think so. In fact, no, because I hear all the time, I just can't even understand. I can't even imagine what they're seeing. It's like,
So
why
to
are
me,
they thinking?
that's the problem. Is they don't have the capability. They haven't done the homework. They haven't done the effort, whatever, to understand the other person's thoughts.
I think
You
that's
don't
step
have to
one.
agree with the thoughts. You have to
No,
understand,
you have to at
right?
least understand them.
And that's I think what I'm getting at with my effort on this is you put yourself in the mindset of that person, and you assume that they're not idiots, that they're actually smart people, and then you try to figure out how they could think that way and get those opinions and still be rational people. And when
Yeah.
you come to that point, then you're better equipped to have a conversation that actually delves into this.
Yeah, I think you need to understand them. Like, why do you believe that? How does it work? And does this always work? I just ask a bunch of
But
questions,
to me,
right? So
that's the first step. That's the thing we're defining here is how do you convince someone or talk to someone or have a conversation with someone who is totally opposite of you. You need to understand them first.
so then I think if you would have if you had asked a better question, Tony
Mm-hmm.
Robbins says, you want better answers, ask better questions. if you would have asked me, like, what would be a generalized approach that you would use to help convince somebody to change?
I
I'd be
asked you,
like,
how
oh
would
yeah,
you
I would
change
answer
someone's
that.
mind? Is basically what I asked you. And you
To
said,
change their mind.
and you said, well, what's it worth to me? And I'm like, that's
Yeah,
irrelevant to my question.
well, it wasn't
I don't
irrelevant to
care what it's
me.
worth to you. I'm saying, how would you change someone's mind? And you know, and then I said, and then I added the premise that, you know, I'm assuming that the people who have an opinion that you don't agree with think they're right and have some kind of a logic behind it.
Well,
That was the second one.
see, and I didn't ask the best question either because I should have asked like, why is that important to you? Like, it's not important to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why should I do that?
And you were talking about money, and I had this has nothing to do with money in my mind. This is the way you go about changing someone's mind, which you know, in my argument is you change their understanding of the world, which includes more facts, more self awareness, more whatever. You know,
That can work sometimes. I think if you can change their perspective, that can help.
again, you change their understanding of the world. It's the same thing. We're saying the same thing.
Well, but that they may not include facts, though, right?
Sure, I didn't say it has to have all those things. Your perspective, your understanding of the world, your perspective of the world. For some people, that's facts. For some people, that's opinions. For some people, that's feelings. For you know,
Okay.
the point
See,
being,
you didn't say
you
that
are
before, though.
changing. What?
See, you didn't say that before. I think you need to be much more careful when you define things, actually, because you lump things together. And for me, what I'm hearing, and it could be me on my hearing, or you talking, but you're putting ands. I'm not hearing ors. Now I hear ors, but I heard ands before between those things.
Ors. What or are you hearing?
Yeah, like now what you say or means it could change their perspective, it could change their facts, it could change this, or and with ors in between those. Like it could be this or this actually.
So I
Before
never
what I
said
was
it's
saying was,
everything. You assumed it was everything.
yeah, that's what I said. It could be that you're not speaking in a way that I'm understanding.
If I don't say it that way, it isn't that. I'm not including it that way. I'm not limiting. Generally, I don't limit it to any one combination unless I say it's that one combination. So if I
Okay,
said
yeah,
it's facts and opinions and I didn't say that. Right? I
yeah,
didn't say
I
it is
heard
a.
in my mind and so what I don't
I said
know.
it could be facts, it could be opinions, it could be the whole idea here being that whatever makes up your worldview, and I'm not saying it's the same for everyone. That's why that's why being able to understand where someone's coming from, putting yourself in their mind. That argument I made on BLM earlier, and you went to that next level of people feeling that it's a power imbalance and we need to balance out the power. I didn't go to that level because I wasn't approaching that. That is another part of someone's worldview, right?
Yeah, they inherently think somebody's done. But it's interesting. So I'm going to go back and replay this because I think this would be of value. We need to
Mm-hmm.
replay these arguments. And then because it could be that you said that, but you didn't think you said it, right? It could be another thing could be is that you actually said it and I didn't hear it that way because I have certain biases. And more than likely, both of us are jacked up. More than likely, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be nice to go back with now having this understanding and then go back from a different perspective and replay this thing. I think would be I think it'd be a huge value actually. Because you know what we're doing, Chris? This is jujitsu, man. This is jujitsu. We're rolling around on the ground. And then later we get to come back and say, hey, what happened? Where were the mistakes? Where did I not hear things? Where did you misspeak? Where did I misspeak? Where did you not hear things?
One thing I know, Scott, you go very much into specific scenarios or specific flows of thought, and I tend to stay as broad as possible and not define things until the end. Not define, not specify a particular path until the end.
Yeah, and not just maybe that our just brains are wired up to solve problems in different ways, actually.
I try to keep the constraints as flexible as possible until we've gotten some alignment, and then we start locking them down individually.
But here's
So
the
if
thing,
it,
though. So this is what you got to do. You've got to make sure that you indicate that to me. It's like, wait, these are not connected up with this. These are it's this or this or this or this or this or there's all multiple possibilities, right? And then so you got to
well,
remind me
then
to
what we
think
need
in
to
this.
do is go back and say, when I say mindset, we need to define mindset.
Yeah, right. These
Right?
are all
to me, a mindset could be a variety of things, and I'm not taking the time to say what a mindset is, includes and doesn't include, because to me, if I define it now, it changes the outcome, and I want the best outcome I can get. So I'm going to keep the definition fluid as we think through potentially what it could be. And then we say, okay, if I leave this thing fluid, there's just too much variable here. I need to lock this down. We go, okay, we'll lock that down. Right. And then, okay, so we got this thing over here. It's kind of wishy-washy. I don't know what it is. And until we lock that down, I can't choose left or right. Okay, let's lock that down. But the idea is if I don't lock it down, the world of possibility is still out there, which means I can still find my way to whatever. You I think what it is you want to lock it down and you default to locking it down. I don't want to lock it down until we're at a certain point, and that's usually where I think we're coming into this.
I'm gonna go back and replay this because right now I kind of remember exactly what you said. I mean, it could be there's something, something. It could have been your tonality. It could be something. I don't know actually. I don't know.
Could have just
I gotta go
been how you
replay
heard
this.
it and how I heard it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to go back because we got to get this figured out because we end up in the same pattern over and over and over again. And instead of having the same pattern, I want to figure out how to get past this pattern because we spend a lot of time. What do? We spend a lot of time arguing about stuff that if it's defined differently, it's like, oh yeah, I see what you're doing now. I get your point, right? Because my point is, to me, it feels like you're trying to lock me down to give an answer. That's why I kept repeating back. So you're putting a gun to my head, right? Is this what you're trying to do? Because I don't really want to solve that problem. It has no interest in me. That's explicitly why I use that term,
That made no sense to me why you went there, putting a gun to my head.
Yeah, because that's because that's why I'm saying it felt like you were trying to lock me down. And I'm like, okay, if you're going to force these constraints, okay, I guess that's a stated thing. So then I'll operate within your constraints.
The thing is, what I'm hoping to get out of you is a theory, a proposal of how we might approach something. And I don't expect it to be perfectly thought out or anything like that. But that the question I'm asking is, here's the scenario. How do we make that change? How do we make that whatever?
Yeah,
and you say, why would I bother? I'm like, that's not my question. I'm not talking about your motivation here. I'm saying I'm giving you this. We're trying to change this, and I don't care why we're trying to change it. We're trying to change it. And you're saying, well, I have to understand why I'm going to change it and how much effort I'm going to put into it. And I'm like, I don't care how much effort we're going to put into it. How do we do it? It's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but I do because I don't want to work. I don't want to spend effort working on a problem that's not important to me.
Yeah, like, and that isn't part of the scenario that I'm bringing up. You could say differently. It goes, well, Chris, is it even worth? You could say, is it even worth doing that? Why would I want to do that? Right?
Yeah. Why should I do that? Right? Why is that even important? Yeah, right.
And then
right.
I would have to come back and say the exercise I'm trying to do is to figure out how we get people to think better.
Yeah.
And it's not about whether it's worth it to me to make them think better. It is worth something to make them work better. I don't know how, the ROI I don't have on that. How many hours of my time is it worth getting one person to think differently? That's an ROI I have not figured out.
Well, and that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking in this term, I wasn't hearing you ask for a generalized approach. I was hearing you, how do I change that one person's mind? And I'm like, I don't even know what's worth trying to change it.
It never even occurred to me that I'm talking about one person. I'm talking about the world, the average person.
That's where I was coming from. That's why I was thinking.
I almost always come from non-specific but general.
Well, I got to go back and re-listen to this. This is going to be very interesting. Like now, with I understand your perspective, now I go back and re-listen. I'll see. Okay, where did I? And more than likely, both of us made some sort of tactical errors along the way. And
okay.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. I just know what I was in my mind, and it felt like you were forcing me down a particular route that I didn't really want to go down.
I think one of the things, and we did kind of get to is when you did state whatever your argument, you're saying you need to understand them and then say you agree with them. Well, you need to agree with them and then dismantle their argument is basically what you were saying, right? And I'm like, Yeah, but yeah, and so then I'm thinking my thought is like, yeah, how do we agree with them, or how do we understand them enough to say, oh, I used to think that way, or I get your point. And
Well,
I
yeah,
think
that's a
that's
generalized
the
approach.
exercise. I think that's the skills, that's the tools we need to work on. Is how do you get how does a person get in the mind of someone else enough to understand them, so that they can have a conversation.
Yeah, because these are the general concepts I'm assuming everybody should know. Meet the person where they are, right? If you're talking to a kid, bend down and talk to him.
I don't see that in society. I see people rushing to judgment, running it through their own filter, not making an effort to try to understand it through the other person's filter.
Well, a lot of
And,
people do what you're saying, but there's a lot of people that are much more evolved that first ask questions before,
yeah,
like,
I
what
don't
are you
think they
thinking,
need.
right?
I don't think they need to do. They're already doing that, and so some of the other stuff we talk about would be interesting to them.
Yeah,
I'm
we need
just
those people on as guests. We need those people to teach us, right? We do
yeah,
the information got to flow the other way, right?
but yeah.
These
Just the whole idea of the whole all lives matter, Black Lives Matter argument in my head. I was going through that and going, if you think one thing, you're not seeing the other person's viewpoint. If you're not seeing the other person's viewpoint, then you will all just go straight to anger and straight to being upset, and you will bypass totally any chance of having any sort of resolution or conversation around that.
Yeah, yeah. If you don't look at it from their perspective first,
Mhm.
then you're gonna get nowhere. All you're gonna argue and go in circles,
Maybe
right?
we need to go start quoting Sun Tzu, know your enemy, blah, 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 that kind of stuff.
Well, I think all these concepts are the same. I think you hear it from whatever. Who's the negotiation guy? I can't remember his name. It's Chris Voss or whatever.
Yeah, Voss.
I mean, Sansu. I mean, Jujitsu. It's like Stephen Covey. I think all these guys are saying the same principle. It's this that they understand like human nature, and they're like
But
saying different ways.
my thought is, if someone is conditioned not to do that, can we help them build the muscle to do that?
Yes, we can do that, and I think the way to do it is we have to argue and we have to struggle just like we did on the mat until we finally listen to each other. Because I think we're not listening to each other is part of the problem.
Okay.
And because obviously, well, we may not be listening, but obviously, okay, here for sure is the answer. We're not understanding each other, right? And we need to figure out what's causing that problem. I think we need to go back and rewind, watch it, and then start to break out. Oh, there it is, right? Both of us agree. That's the problem. That's where the problem started, right? It's like that's the jiu-jitsu move. It's like you messed up 5 moves ago. That was the start of the problem, actually. And I think we need to break it down and analyze it. I mean, that's how everybody does it. Like off swings, anything you record it and you go back and analyze it, and you go, "There's your problem."
Did you say
You're
we need to do that last week or the week before?
We did, yeah. We didn't record that one though. This one we got on recording. I think we need to make a rule, Chris. Whenever we talk, we need to hit the record button. Whether we
Yeah,
decide to use it or not, that's
because
that's a different
our five
distinction.
minute conversations always go long. So
Always go, yeah, always go long, which is probably a good thing. Okay, that's really good. I'm gonna check. Yeah, we're gonna listen. We're gonna get this figured out, Chris. You and I are gonna get much more in sync. Actually, this is
yeah,
gonna be good.
and I think part of it will be you being able to understand how my brain works and me being able to understand how your brain works. I think that's a part of it,
Yes,
right?
yes,
It's when I consider when people are truly aligned, they're able to take on the thought process of other people. When I was on a project team and the boss was gone, we all understood how the boss thought, so we could make the decisions that even with the boss not being there, because we understood exactly how the boss would think, and that
yes,
worked. And we understood how every department head thought too. It's like that guy,
yes,
he's coming in from this way, he's out today, but let's do this because that's what he would do, right?
yes,
I mean
yes.
that to me is so powerful. But there's a level of time commitment and effort in understanding someone that only with the hours we spend can we get that.
Yeah, yeah. Like our last guest, right, Coach B. It's like there's just no getting around. You just got to put the reps in, right? There's just no getting around, rolling
Yeah.
around on the mat, right? And we're gonna get bumped up and bruised a little bit. But I
Hmm.
know that even though I get frustrated with you sometimes, I know your intent is never to hurt me, which is always a good thing. And I hopefully like you feel the same way, right? So there's a level of trust
Yeah,
between
I
us.
ex- I expect you to be direct, and therefore, if something you say is somehow rubs me the wrong way, I'm assuming it's just because you're direct,
Yeah, I'm not intending. Yeah,
right?
because it's
As
interesting.
opposed, yeah, intent, right? Intent is your intent has nothing to do with trying to control the way I'm thinking or feeling, but it's more, yeah, it's an expression of something that you see, and you're saying it as directly as you can.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. You remember Jamar, and we should maybe, since this is recording, so Chris and I are both in Toastmasters. I gave a speech. Chris evaluated my speech. And I said, like, don't hold any punch. I can't remember what I said, but basically, like, give it to me, right? Don't. What did I
Hmm.
say? I can't remember the words I used, but something.
Uh, don't
I
go
could pull it
easy,
up.
something like that. Don't go easy.
No, it was more strong than that. Oh, show no mercy. Those are the
Show no
words I
mercy.
used.
That's right. Okay.
Exactly. And it was so funny because Jamar, who was a guest on the show, I think it's podcast 6 or 7, he
7,
explicitly
yeah.
remember he called out to the guests. He said, "Okay, wait a minute. These guys got a relationship, so they've sort of got permission to go at each other a little
So
bit."
yeah, so you said show no mercy, and I said okay, I'm going at you on this, and I said you took apart one of the speakers last week, so I'm gonna go after you on this one, and then he made the effort to, since we had a guest who hadn't been in a meeting before and didn't
Yes,
understand that relationship and may not have understood exactly how safe an environment it is to screw up in. Um,
yes, yes,
he made the effort to bring that forth, and I was thinking actually when he did that, I was like, maybe we shouldn't have been so strict on that one because we did have a guest. But on the flip side, one of the things I think that's really powerful about that group is the ability to be blunt and give people feedback and not have to worry about them getting overly emotional on it.
yes. See, that's critical because the key in jujitsu is the tap, and that's what makes it safe. So if I start feeling overwhelmed or you feel overwhelmed, you can tap out, right? We're okay, done. We're stopped. And that doesn't mean I finish my sentence. I mean, we have to stop immediately, right? And that as long as we have that understanding and that rule, then we can roll around pretty darn aggressively.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the cool thing is with that is, man, you start getting good really fast, right?
Well, I mean that's the other thing Jamaro says, right? Sharp iron sharpens iron. Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron, a biblical thing in the Bible. Yes, yes, yes. And I think that is so critical. Man, safety and trust are just the most important things, actually. And I know that Master Now Goes, he would be constantly watching everybody, and you wouldn't even see him watching you, and he'd be yelling across the room, like calling out names and telling them to stop immediately, because he knew that if you keep doing what you're doing, somebody's going to get hurt just because their leg was in a funny position or something like that. He goes, no, 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 this is not safe, actually. And I remember he lectured us many times. It's like, when I say stop, you fricking stop immediately. You don't finish anything because for one, I just said stop, and it's usually because somebody's going to get hurt, and I don't want anybody to get hurt. Right? So it's kind of fascinating thing. Yeah, but I love our Toastmasters group, Chris. I mean, I'm starting to feel really connected to that group, and I think we're getting better. I mean, the quality of our speeches. I mean, there's some pretty darn good speeches in there, and we're getting better.
I think we really need to. I almost think we need to have specific challenges for some of the speakers. I know
Man,
we've got pathways and blah 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 blah, but I mean like, okay, you're challenging yourself. You've been playing around with various presentation software and doing all kinds of stuff like that, and using new tools like your teleprompter. But I'm like, maybe you say this speech is intended to win the international speech contest. This speech is intended for me to do a keynote speech at this event. This speech is intended for me to introduce myself in front of 1,000 people, who have no idea who the hell I am.
yeah,
And actually kind of ratchet it up a notch, because we have some speakers who are just better at ad libbing and others who aren't. We have and as much as, oh gosh, I'm really against slides on Zoom because the eye contact thing. I don't. It's one thing when the content really needs it, but so many people are, they put up a slide and then they talk with that slide up for 3 minutes, and there's nothing on the slide that takes 3 minutes, but now the entire 3 minutes I'm looking at a picture. I'm not looking at you talk.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, Jamar busted me, right? You didn't see the comment, but he's like, eye contact, eye contact. I'm like, okay, God, but how? Then you got to give me a technique to do the eye contact, but I don't want to memorize the speech. I mean, it's like it's like I don't want to spend that much time on it, you know? I
So
mean,
this okay, so this is an opportunity for someone, us if we were more technically inclined to do this, but we need a technology that allows you to look at all the people on the screen and make eye contact with them. Because the reason why you want eye contact is I want to see your reaction, to know that
yes,
what I'm saying
yes,
is connecting. And if I
yes.
can't see your face and all I'm looking at is a little circle on my phone here, that is a problem. Like right now, if you were to make a face, I couldn't tell because I'm not looking at
Yeah, because
you. I'm
I'm
looking.
missing so much information. Right, exactly. Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, we talk about, was it communication is 85% unspoken or whatever, right?
yeah,
Uh, that's part of it. Is it's the feedback I get from that as well.
yeah,
So if we
yeah.
could build a technology where we had cameras all over and it tracked your eye movement, so you were always looking at the right camera. Maybe that's it. Maybe you have you remember we talked about having a camera that drops down to the middle of the screen?
Well, I have that set up. It's like I can't show it, unfortunately. But so if you can imagine this, so my monitor's pretty big. So I have this
Hmm.
camera like up about halfway to my
Yeah.
screen on a little piece of. Have you seen this before?
No, your setup or just a general? Because they make cameras that hang in front of the monitor too.
Well, I'm doing the same thing, except I'm going from the ground up.
Yeah, I've done that. Even my cell phone is partially in front of you.
Yeah,
That's why
right.
it's not as bad as if when it's down here and I'm looking down here. But
I
but
wasn't even
the,
taking
the
a picture. Yeah.
but imagine if you could set up a rotating view of people behind where your camera is.
Well, let me show you this, right? So this is called teleprompter. I don't know if you see this. This is probably one of the closest thing. There's the cameras like directly behind the lens. And so when this is on, it reflects up into here and I can see. So maybe what I'm going to do is start experimenting
Well, if
with.
you can pick one person and put them up there and you're comfortable, great. If you want everyone, I would say we need a way to rotate. We need like every 5 seconds it goes to the next person. And then you could keep that view behind the camera, so at least you're looking in the right area the entire time.
But I want my script up there too. I want that
Yeah,
and then
let's
I
see.
want my script overlaid on top of that, you know?
And so let's think about if you were giving a presentation in front of people,
Yeah.
right? You might have a monitor with your screen with your slides, but it would also be on the screen behind you. You might have notes, you might not, depending, right? But you would have direct eye contact with people.
Well, but let's say we're speaking live, like back in the old days, it's like one to many, right? It's like people don't demand direct eye contact because they know it's physically impossible. I can eye contact with you for a few seconds and then move, but I can't give eye contact to everybody at the same time.
Correct. But we see when you're not giving eye contact to anybody, right? When you're
Yes.
thinking and doing this, we recognize that. So I recognize you may not give me any eye contact during a real speech, but if I see you not giving other people eye contact, I'm going to notice it.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask a question because we're just assuming that the eye contact is all important. How important is eye contact?
I would argue for our age group, probably much more. You argue for the younger age group, it's less important.
So you're thinking most of the time we should be giving eye contact.
I think it goes back to the idea of putting your cell phone down when you're at dinner and don't look at your phone when it rings and all that kind of stuff is because we assume attention is what we value, and when attention gets distracted, we think more poorly of a person. And I think the older we are, the more we do that. I think the younger we are, the more we accept the people that distractions occur.
Well, and I keep playing with this thing because I've got another high quality camera behind. Then I got my teleprompter, but then to mix everything, so I got three monitors, and then I need to use OBS to link with that camera, and it's technically complicated. Then I've got to be running the PowerPoint at the same time. I mean, I need to spend more time doing that, but it's just technically complicated, and
Well,
I guess I
yeah,
need to figure it out.
yeah, and so that's one thing I was thinking. The other thing I think we needed to figure out is a way for us to do desk work without sitting. And I don't mean a walking treadmill. I mean actually design systems that are designed to be used while standing and moving.
Well, let me try this. I mean, since we're doing right now, it's like so. This is a very high desk, so I'm. Oh yeah, I'm definitely. Or my camera needs to be up here, and then I'm looking down. Yeah, let's give that some real thought. I needed to spend some time making something. I don't know, doing something.
Well, um, the the problem is also distance, right? If you can be further from the camera, your eye contact is less obvious.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly. Well, I mean, I can. I mean, just for fun. Hang on a second. Can't believe we're recording this, but this is on the podcast. Yes, and listen, anybody who's watching this, if you're watching it like 3 hours, whatever, we're into this right now, you got an answer to this question, please help us because we're so I can do something like this. It's a much wider position. I mean, is that better, do you think? Do you like more wide angle or a little closer?
So when you're giving a speech in front of a bunch of people, now I'm not talking about in a boardroom. I'm talking like in front of an audience. We don't have a close up of you. Like, and that's one of the conversations we have is like, I'm in your personal space right now based upon distance. Realistically, I'm probably going to be here when we talk, right? And
Well,
so when I think about that and I'm watching you look at other people, then I'm actually seeing that it's much harder for me to know exactly where you're looking with your eyes. The
yeah, no,
further the camera.
I got that point, but okay, here's my question, right? I want to ask this question. My question is Zoom is a different medium. And
Yes,
so it simulates person to person, but it's not person to person. It's different.
correct.
And so I'm just, what I don't want to do, well, Hannah, I don't want to say that. I'm a little bit resistant unless you can convince me that are we trying to simulate person to person? Is that the ultimate goal?
I think it really depends on what the speeches you're doing, right? When we're doing when you're doing a YouTube video and you're if it's just you giving a conversation to the audience, that's camera work. And of course you're doing it to a camera, so you're not going to get any feedback to judge off of.
Yeah,
So
right.
maybe that's part of the lesson is he's saying this is a presentation. I've got software here, but I've got a slideshow here. This is how it's going to go. This is me putting a recording on YouTube. It's one way. It's one directional. So I need you to be stricter on your judgment of from that perspective. Maybe we need
Yeah.
to do that because I've been against using slides a lot, and a lot of people are telling me, "Oh, you should use slides for that," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it would have been a lot of complexity to have a couple of bits of information on a slide when I can explain that to you and maintain your visual attention on me." Right? That's the kind of the way I've been doing it. So I've only been using slides. I haven't used any in a while. When there's something that I can't explain well, or I need to really shortcut the explanation.
Yeah. Well, pictures are powerful. I mean, people need some sort of visual. I mean, that's a powerful sort of thing. Like I know in my Greek talk today, I don't know how I would have done that without a slide because I need you to
I don't
see.
think you could have, because then it's just ideas, and the problem is the visual is the impact, right? Seeing the words written down is the impact for what you were doing.
Yeah, and in that case, is eye contact still important because I have to look at the words, and then I should have had some sort of way to highlight to point, like I'm looking at this, reading this particular
So
word.
if you were giving that at a college, you've
Yeah,
got the presentation on the screen behind you. You would talk to the audience, and then you would turn and point to whatever part it is, and then you would, point, then look at them and say something, and then go on. Right? You would
yeah,
actually interact. You would interact with the slideshow, which then gives you an excuse not to look at the audience.
yeah. But remember back
Right?
in the old days of Toastmasters, it's like the mortal sin was turning your back on the audience. That was just the mortal sin, right? Which I'm like, I don't really think it's a problem, but everybody else thought it was a
No, but
problem.
even so, like even what I just did, I didn't turn my back. I turned sideways. I pointed up to the screen to say this is the blah 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 blah, and then I was speaking to them. I think there's certain activities that give you a pass for eye contact.
Yeah, yeah, because I don't need to always, if I'm trying to learn something, I don't need to have eye contact with you all the time because I'm trying to learn something. So I'm not needing to connect. As long as you connect with me every once in a while, I'm fine. But other people are now. Jamar is really sensitive to this, right? Because every time I get busted, eye contact, it's all he says is eye contact.
Well, his big thing is eye contact, right? Even when you look at his presentations where he has slides, they are on the side, and he never, except for the one time he looked at it on purpose, he never looks at it.
No, that was a beautiful move he did. Yeah.
Right. Part of
Well,
that is because Prezi puts it on the same screen you're on. Puts this that so basically, as long as you've got yourself in a visible place, you can judge that, right?
well, that's what I did on the teleprompter, and I'm looking here at the teleprompter. This is why I'm looking here. But everybody busted me because it was almost like I was a PowerPoint slide, right? I was like green screen in to it, and then everybody busted me. They didn't like the blue on the blue. They didn't like blue shirt on the blue back.
Yeah. No, so
okay,
so
won't do that again.
So that one was interesting because you were trying to give a speech directly from the teleprompter, though, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and so I wonder offhand, when you're doing something that's direct like that, then the teleprompter makes sense as a tool. But aside from that, you can ad lib fine. So why do you need a teleprompter?
Because people want eye contact and I need to read the script. That's why. Because I can't read.
Why do you need a script?
Because I wanted AI to write the script and I wanted to just read off.
For that one, no. For that one, yes. But what about in general, like today?
Well, I still use the slides as the script, right? So I was reading the word. So I mean, it's not the same as reading the script, but I was reading off the slide.
And you had that on the teleprompter?
No, I didn't use the teleprompter at all today.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so obviously I need to spend more time with it, and then there was some issue with the sound because I basically had 3 cameras, 3 monitors, and 3 audio sources in OBS running through, and people were claiming that it said something like it was a double audio sound or something. So I need to watch it. I need to watch that replay because I think.
And I don't know what it was, but your video is so tiny. Other people's videos were bigger, and I don't know what the difference is. Why it recorded that? So your screen is your slides are massive, like they take up 90% of the screen, and then your thing is like this tiny little thing. And I
need to go back and watch it because what I'm seeing is not what you guys were seeing, and so that's I don't really even understand. The thing is,
I don't know how, because I did cloud recording, which means that none of my settings should have impacted it. So I don't know why it's different.
Do you have that recording by any chance? Could you, if you?
I sent you the link. I sent the link to the group, so it'll be an email I sent about 10 o'clock.
No, I'm not talking about the speech today. The speech before a few weeks ago or something.
Did we record that one?
I don't know that we recorded.
I don't remember recording that previous one.
Okay, maybe we don't have it then. Okay, all right. Okay. Well, Chris, I'm ready to wrap this up.
Yeah, that's good. All right, let me know if you need to talk about anything, and over the weekend or whatever.
Sounds good. All right, Chris. See ya. Bye.
Yeah, we can talk about blood sugar again too. So that's
important.
Now that I've got my CGM on, I'm paying a lot more attention to it. So.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Cool.
We'll see ya.